Appreciate you coming, man.
Thank you for allowing me.
We're going to try to see if we can get this thing going and just sit down, like we said when we started this thing, sit down, just a conversation. Easiest way to do it. I personally, like I was telling you before, I don't like debates. Debates, in my opinion, are usually always skewed in one direction or the other. And so we'll try this and see how it works. So we're going to do this sit down conversation. That's all. Only thing I did is I got some notes because I just want to try to remember some things for us to talk about. Just have a conversation. So so what I did do was I asked that you just give me a little bit of information, a little background to get started, so everybody will know that don't know you. They'll know a little more about you. And so I'll just read what you wrote. So it says you were born and raised in Trinity, North Carolina, where I reside. I have deep roots in the community and a career built on public service and leadership and disciplined decision making. I attend local schools in Trinity and completed college coursework through the North Carolina Community College System. I am a successful business owner, a property owner with a diversified real estate portfolio valued at nearly $3 million. My business operates including a team of 8 employees and numerous contractual agreements, reflecting experience in management, compliance, and long-term operational oversight. From 2001 to 2016, I served in law enforcement, where I advanced continuously through education, specialized training, leadership roles over a 15-year career. My professional experience spans community policing, advanced constitutional law, which includes search and seizure, interview, interrogation, crisis response, supervision, and officer development. I'm a graduate of the Police Law Institute and the Gallagher Westfall Law Enforcement Leadership Academy. My advanced training includes hostage negotiation, crisis intervention, and field service, and in the service, field training, FTO, what we normally call an FTO, field training officer, where I trained and mentored numerous officers who went on to have successful careers. My federal level training includes advanced studies with the high intensity drug trafficking area program in Atlanta, focusing on complex narcotics investigations, interdiction at both commercial and street levels, and intelligence related to gangs and cartels. I'm also a graduate of the North Carolina Sheriff's Detention Officer Program. Additionally, I served 3 years on the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Committee Advanced Traffic Team, specializing in crash reconstruction, impaired driving detection, chemical analysis certification, speed measurement, and A-RIDE. I say that right? A-RIDE? That's correct. My career reflects a consistent focus on leadership, accountability, risk assessment, and result skills I apply across business ownership, real estate investment, and strategic decision making. My mission is to uphold and advance public safety through principled leadership, sound judgment, and accountability while strengthening the communities I serve. I'm committed to protecting the people, property, developing responsible organizations, and applying experience gained in law enforcement, crisis response, and business leadership to promote safety, stability, and long-term trust with the community. Sounds good. Let me give you that back there. That sounds good. So, yeah, we'll get into some of that, and we'll, because a lot of that, I don't know what that is, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that is.
Right,
So,
I understand.
So you just start wherever you want to start, and then we'll go from there.
I'll just start back when, what got me to where we are here today. First, thanks for allowing myself to be here. Out of the 4 candidates, I am a kind of a lone wolf guy. I self-fund my own campaign. Give you an instance, I was at one of the Walmart here in Randolph. and I go around to a lot of the convenience stores and the grocery stores where I can meet a lot of folks. But I handed a lady my campaign card the other day, and I said, I'd like to introduce myself. She said, I've never seen a candidate walking around Walmart in the parking lot. And I said, well, I don't have a team of folks on my coattail wanting a benefit from me running. And she said, well, can I give you some money for your campaign? I said, no, ma'am. She said, you don't want free money? I said, ma'am, if I take 50, I owe you something. I owe you $50. And so that's kind of where I'm at today. Is when I started this in 2003, 4, going to BLET, Maynard Reed at the time was a captain over patrol in Randolph County. Freddie Rutledge was a major. And they came to me at Randolph County Community College and asked me to come aboard. At that time, many of the local cities were facing some budget issues. There was somewhat of it was pre-08, but some of the cities started seeing a crunch in the economics and so forth. So a lot of cities had hiring freezes. High Point, Thomasville, a lot of the local municipalities where I probably had rather went to begin with. However, at 20 years old, 21 years old, taking the opportunity that was provided to me or presented to me would have been ignorant of me not to take and take that as a blessing.
So did you originally go to the sheriff's office?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually hired while in BLET. I worked patrol, would go to school in the evening. And if I was off that day, I'd go to school, come back in that evening, or whatever, vice versa. Lieutenant Hurley hired me. He was great to me, treated me with a lot of respect. Of course, everybody loved Lieutenant Hurley. When I sat in his office in the interview, and what got me hired, he asked me my career goal. That moment,
I've heard this story.
Yeah. At that moment, he asked me what my career goal was, and I told him that I would take his seat one day. Not his, but sit in the seat in which he was granted for that opportunity at the re-election. That I would run for sheriff one day. And he looked at me and said, well, that's a big goal to tell your boss. And I said, well, you asked me a question, I'm going to answer it. And in saying that, that's a double-edged sword with me with a lot of people. So at that moment, I took the opportunity. I worked at the sheriff's office, had a great time, worked for Victor Welch. He's passed away since, bless his heart. But Victor Welch, Johnny Huzzy, Andre Murphy, a lot of great guys that really paved the road for a lot of deputies in this county. And then I started seeing some of the politics. And I went ahead and lateraled out, went to the city of Thomasville. And that's where.
Now, when you say politics, give me a couple, or give them a couple of examples of.
Just the example is, if you've lived in Randolph County any amount of time, you've felt it, seen it, witnessed it. A lot of things are controlled, and me as a young man, not understanding that, just full of, the old saying, piss and vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready to went to Billy T. It's time to put everything you learn to work. I'm going to stop cars. I'm going to take bad people to jail. I'm here to protect the community. And then they pump the brakes on you. It's election year. Okay. So you're kind of dumbfounded. We would call out suspicious vehicles leaving buildings when they were actually just a vehicle in front of us. Like, what did we have to do to circumvent the politics so we could do our job? I started seeing some of that, and it really wasn't doing well, right? And then when you go out and you try to fulfill the smile or whatever, and then you realize that the people you're smiling in front of don't like who you work for, so then they make these bogus complaints on you, and then you have to face that music. And it was always chasing your tail instead of doing your job. It was, well, who am I going to make mad today? Am I going to have a job today? Am I not going to have a job today? So feeling those pressures as a young man, I could only imagine being in the sheriff's office at any county for an amount of time and understanding, how do I go home in the evening knowing I'm going to have a job tomorrow or not, Right. And that's what really drove my drive to want to be the sheriff, to allow men and women to come to work, do their job. And when somebody calls and complains because they don't like me, unless they did something unethical, against policy or against the law, don't call me. That's who I want to be. I want to be where they can go home, spend time with their family, come back Monday, and they still have a job. I'm not worried about if the person's voting for me, not voting for me. Men and women for many years in this county have not been able to do their job to the fullest of their benefit and for the benefit of the community because of the political pressures.
And that's an admirable position to take, because that is and has been historically always been an issue. Is many many deputies over the years, as you are well aware, they're probably more afraid of a complaint, losing their job, or being written up, um, maybe not necessarily justifiably.
Right.
And I'm not sure if you have that at municipal departments,
Right.
but it certainly exists in many sheriff's
Well,
office.
well, one thing the public needs to understand as a sheriff, the powers on the Constitution allow him to fire and hire at will.
Right.
You do not draw unemployment unless there's some type of legality with the state of like discrimination, something like that. But this as far as, hey, your service is no longer needed. You walk out the door. You don't go to the state employment commission and get you a check. They're not going to do that. You work at the will of the sheriff, and I'll take this one step further and speak of one of my opponents here and give him that respect. One of the elections in the last several years under the current administration, he didn't have very much time left. And he had to restart his career because of the powers of the sheriff. That's not fair to him. But yes, we're opponents, but at the same time, I understand and give him that respect. It wasn't right. Was there some type of politics that played that? Obviously, there was.
So it was an at-will firing. It wasn't,
I think it
I
was,
guess, what we would say a call for cause firing.
yeah, there was no four calls. It was just, I'm a new sheriff and I don't want you here no more. You
Yeah.
know,
So I guess a couple of questions with that. I guess one is, what is the effect? I guess not just the professional, but what's the professional, personal ramifications for an individual?
yeah, I mean, when you work in that environment, your stress levels through the roof. Obviously, like I mean, I would ask the public to think about if they went to work every day thinking if they went left instead of right, they would lose their job. If they said hey and not bye, they would lose their job. Just something simple. You don't really know, and there's no consistencies of you could do it. Four other people have done it and never happened to them. There's no consistencies. There's no rhyme or reason. It was just your day. You know, and so the stress level goes up. Am I going to continue to feed my family for a day or 30 years? And the power of the sheriff is so powerful, it's almost disrespectful. I understand the powers of the sheriff as far as protecting the county in which they serve, having that authority as far as law enforcement. Totally understand it. But there are some issues that in our state, both sheriff's office and municipalities, that it's very difficult for men and women to do their job and do it correctly without those pressures. And then they take those pressures, like you say, that personal side, they take it home to their wife, to their kids, or whoever, and then they have that stressors. That's why, on average, I think law enforcement live what, maybe in their 50s? They have heart attacks, they have strokes, they die unexpectedly because of those stressors. Since I've been out of law enforcement, my stress is obsolete. My stress is only what I cause. you know, and that's a lot of itself. But those stressors are so high that the life expectancy for an officer is, I think they cut almost 50% of the life out,
Wow.
40%, I think. And most even die just after retirement. I mean, a lot of senior officers I know that have retired, their life expectancy after their career is not very long if they make it out of the career.
Okay, so what's the solution? What's Eric's plan for
My
that?
my solution is, and what I've said for years now, going on 13 years, what time the rhetoric I've put out is, I, if I become sheriff and I'm awarded that position, would be that officers that live in the county, that's fine. I'd like for you to live in a surrounding county. There's a big thing about, parking the cars at homes, whatever. But when you take deputies, they come to work here, they go to the grocery store, they go to church, their kids, they never leave work. They're they're always here. And I get the old way of thinking, it's in your community, we pay your salary. Well, in today's world, it's not in the early 90s, late 80s, where it's a whole different world now. allowing these guys, these men and women, to live their lives, but provide a job like anyone else. And that's a career, and that's a calling in my heart that I feel you have to survive the career. But let's help with the survival by reducing those stressors. And even as running, I see deputies like, hey, wouldn't it be nice to know that if you got complained on today, we'll look at it. If you ain't violated policy, you stuck with good principles and you didn't violate the law, they can be mad all they want to. As long as you did what you're supposed to, you didn't lie, and it was ethical. There's one thing I'm gonna say about it.
Yeah, just let me give you a scenario because this just popped in my head from years past. I know that there was an individual employed with a uh, county sheriff's office, had their personal vehicle worked on. They had some issues about the work versus the pay, just a disagreement,
Right.
as many people will. And I think this particular deputy didn't pay the bill and ultimately was told you either pay the bill or you're fired.
Right.
So what's your view? What's your
I,
view on that?
I don't agree with it. That's a civil issue that had nothing to do with the sheriff's office. And just because that business owner may have drank coffee with me at breakfast or knows me or whatever, I would say, listen, if he's done wrong, there's a civil action you could take. I'm not firing him for an off-work incident that's not criminal. That is civil. I mean, how many, and let's be real here, and I've brought this up, how many deputies are paying child support? That's a civil issue. If they don't pay, yeah, there's some legalities there. It's a little bit different, but it's civil. Being a person that was sit on leadership and did interviews of officers, there's plenty of officers that pay child support. They do their due diligence and what they're supposed to, male and female. But to fire someone or force them to pay something they shouldn't pay, I would ask the community, what if your job did that to you? You would not, it'd be an unjustifiable hire. But because we go back to the power of the sheriff, he can put those pressures and then say, hey, turn your stuff in, your services are no longer needed.
So what if it was? And I think I know the answer to this, but what if it was? Uh, we'll call it a high-profile family, large family, well-connected in organizations and churches, and you're talking hundreds of votes. Would that change your mind?
No. I've said this, I just told the gentleman the other day, he said, Eric, I was getting gas in Hillsville, and he pulled up, he said, hey, his name's Frank. I'll give his first name. He said, he never taught you to hear this. He said, but you've earned my vote. And I looked at him, I said, I'd rather earned it than you give it to me.
Good point.
Right? So we go back to that. If your support for me is on a shoestring, you didn't support it anyways.
Well, if you earned it, how many? This will be
my third time running.
Yeah. So if he's saying you earned it this time, that statement says you didn't have it.
That's right.
The two previous runs.
And the difference between this time and the two previous is nothing different except for my age, and I've proved everything I've said. It took making believers this entire time. You know, hey, he can't do that. Here's the proof. They can't do that. Here's the proof. Over and over and over. Is what's led to a lot of people now supporting. Is my delivery white gloved and on a silver platter? No, never going to be. You know, have I kind of reeled it back some? Yes, on some of my delivery. Because
So why would you?
I'm better than what I was doing.
In what way?
Some of my language,
Okay.
verbiage, you know, although it's true.
But what made you change that? So apparently somewhere there was some reflection.
That's correct.
You did some, if the word's correct, some introspection. You looked at yourself and you saw something that needed correcting.
Here's what I'll tell you: as any young person or any person at any age, if every day you're not trying to advance to be better than you were yesterday, then why are you here? Right? And as you read my portfolio, I'm not where I'm at today because I stayed stagnant. I'm where I'm at today because I saw what I did yesterday. It didn't work. What can I do tomorrow to make it better and keep progressing forward so I'm not still here?
So, and I will say that I have noticed in recent years that it's a it's a bit of a kinder, gentler Eric.
Yeah,
And so, but in those years past, and like you said earlier, you had mentioned it's a double-edged sword.
that's right.
And so, let me ask you this: being driven the way that you are, obviously everybody doesn't share those goals. Everybody doesn't share that drive. And in years past, you've been pretty vocal. I guess. Well, let me ask this question first. Kind of the inner look at yourself and the change.
Hmm.
Where we'll call it a gentler, kinder. I don't remember, some politician said that, but was that more of you just looked at yourself and said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going
Right. I mean,
to call them this name, that name, or was
right.
it more, as you mentioned earlier, was it more of a spiritual type thing?
I think it's both. It's both. Um, speaking to others that I'm close with, what would they like to see different? You know, and respecting their opinions of what I was saying or doing. I give some thought to it, prayed about it, and I'm saying the same things. You know, the only thing that really bothers me is people scream they want truth. They want truth. They want accountability. But when you apply it, they really don't want it. You're right. So that's the force I'm against every day as I run. Or even if I win, I say if because there's it's there. We could do this. At the end of the day, they're not used to the accountability. What I believe in is old school accountability. You work hard for what you got. You don't bother other people. You live sound. You live unsoiled. And if you progress on someone else or transgress on someone else, then you have to be held accountable. We have to hold people accountable. And they want truth. They scream they want truth. They scream they want accountability. But when you have someone willing to put that forward, it's pushback.
Do you think that in years past, you think some of your aggressive talk or aggressive social media talk, you think that has created some of that,
Of
or
course it has. Yeah,
okay,
yeah. And it is. But in saying those things I've said, I'm not going to apologize for what I said because they're still true. I may say, hey, I hate you read into it to the point of it's affected you for 13 years.
so it's more of
It's a
you don't
personal.
apologize for the content, but maybe the delivery.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. The delivery, I get it. It hits you hard.
Let me interrupt you just a second. What do you feel is the primary responsibility of a sheriff?
Protect his community at all cost. One thing I have faced in this 13-year of this stuff is many of those I face in the run for sheriff for the same position. And what you've seen is a transition from a sheriff's office being very political to maintaining its politicalcy to more of a human rights and services agency. We've lost the focus of the sheriff.
So how so? Tell me kind of.
It's all about fundraisers and charismatic leadership and, let's pamper the criminal. I don't believe in that, right? And I just did a piece on my.
So fundraisers at all? You don't believe?
I mean, I don't mind if we want to help. Hey, the agencies go down here and help.
Somebody with
Special
cancer
Olympics,
or
cancer.
somebody with cancer.
There's a local person and they need traffic control for a run or something like that. Hey, we'll do what we can to help. I'm not saying shut all that, but the sheriff's office isn't a for profit, and it's not a nonprofit.
Let's go with detention. Let's talk about that, and we'll talk about, because I think just in the last 4 or 5 years they added on to the detention
Right.
center, and so I mean, if talk about it, the size of it, the number of employees, the number of pods,
Much of the detention center.
the budget. If the
My
budget
biggest
that takes
thing
that.
with the detention center is your first. I don't like to call it a detention center.
I've
Right?
always called
The
it jail.
detention center, in my opinion, is you get in trouble at school and you go down here to miss Carol's office and have to sit there for 8 hours for the day, for 2 days a week, whatever. I call it a jail. Now, are there innocent people in that place pending trial? They're all supposedly innocent, presumption, okay? In that presumption, we also still have to create an atmosphere that people do not want to come to Randolph County to commit crime. Under current, they call it a gated community.
Now, like as you just said, there's a presumption of innocence.
Correct.
And so would that be a problem if you create an environment, for them not to want to come back under the presumption of innocence? It's almost,
So what I'm getting at is, one thing you've got to work on to move the criminal element out of our county is you got to create a detention center, jail, that these people do not want to come to. As of right now, we talk about some operations. The times I've
But
run,
is that for convicted people or people pending?
well, there's both. There's post conviction, post sentence, and there's prior.
I realize there's both in there,
Mm-hmm.
but when you say you want to apply some methods to make sure people don't want to come back to that jail,
Right.
are you saying that's to the post-convicted people serving short term,
so what I would say,
or is that for people that's been arrested, presumption of innocence, and pending trial?
pretty much across the board. Here's what I'm getting at. Right now, you can go to our jail, the gated community is what they call it. You get a tablet, play video games, or whatever they're doing with Paytail, and that's a revenue maker, okay? I don't care about your revenue, okay? I don't care. They got all that type of stuff. My understanding is, under what I'm being told, there's TVs on the wall now. Actually, one year they had a pizza party at Super Bowl and watched the Super Bowl. Why are we doing this?
This year?
I don't know about this year. This
Okay.
was years past. And they did like a pizza party. Okay. These people have presumably have transgressed or caused victimization to someone or something. Okay. Being a victim sitting at home with PTSD, the victimization, had to go to counseling, whatever, a rape victim, a homicide victim's family, whatever it may be. The last thing I want to hear, and I'm running for sheriff, and I've not been victimized like that, would be to know that the person who's presumably innocent sitting down there has got a tablet in their hand. They can text family, they can pay for this, pay for that, do what they can do at home, but they're paying down there as a revenue generator. And they're watching the Super Bowl party. If you don't make a detention jail somewhere you don't want to be, they're going to keep coming back.
But under the presumption of innocence, some of these folks
But that's fine.
possibly didn't do anything.
Well, here's the deal.
Isn't that right?
That's right. At home, you can have all the tablets you want. If I'm elected, no tablets. You'll have a Paytel phone on the wall. If you need to call your grandma, your mama, your kids, you'll punch in a number, you can call them whenever we allow that to happen. But tablets are coming out, no TVs, no nothing. And that presumption, I get it, is there. I'm 42. I've never been in jail. If the presumption's there, I get it, and they should be innocent. Only thing I tell them is if you're around somebody and you're catching the fleas of a dog, I'd go somewhere else around with the dogs. We've got to create it to where people don't want to come to Randolph County, North Carolina, to commit any crime or even thought that you committed a crime.
Yeah. Now, what I'd like for you to do also is talk about that jail and talk about what the population, the inmate population makeup is.
Majority of it is, about 300 head count on average, sometimes more. Some of the salaries of the upper echelon are pretty heavy. I've looked at them, not saying they're not worth it. It's kind of saying, as a business person, as someone who operates a business, why am I paying you $100,000? One of the first things I would do with the detention center is show me why we're spending the first 3 salaries $250,000.
As far as, we'll get back to the salary just a
Right.
but talking about the inmate population, what makeup of what is, when I say that, I mean, because there are some people that are serving time
Right.
in a jail. There are people that have been arrested, presumed innocent, and waiting for trial. Um, what all types of people are actually in there? The inmates.
It's anything from driving charges to homicide.
So
You know,
so does somebody pull, let's say, pull 5 years in the county jail?
no, what
Okay.
most of the time what you're going to see on sentenced inmates, they may be there a day or two, a week or two, and they're going to be shipped out. DOC is going to pick them up. They come in with a bus, they load them up, and they go ahead and rid them out to wherever facility they need to go to.
So is there a cutoff in there, like say a 6 month sentence, a year
I think
sentence,
it's
a
usually,
2 year?
it all really depends. I don't know how our current administration is operating, or if they're using any sentenced inmates to stay as trustees to help with cleaning, whatever. I've got my own plans I want to do with that. Work with
Is
the
that the
state.
sheriff's discretion as to who
Uh,
stays in the jail?
no, no. A lot of times well, it all depends on the courts. Court's going to present, hey, you've got 45 days, but you can do weekends at the county jail.
Mhm.
So they'll allow them to come in do their 45 days and do it through the county jail, serve their weekends or
So if they
whatever.
get 12 months, 18 months,
They're going to go on to DOC.
okay.
But what I would like to do is really get with the administrators of the state DOC and say, hey, we want to start a program. As much as we want to see convicted inmates in a jail or in a DOC, I want to put them out here working. There's a lot of great men and women that have made bad choices, and they understand they got to pay their debts to society. Once they learn that and they better their lives, nobody can fault them.
Right. And is that the chain gang that you're
Yeah,
talking about?
and that's what I referenced it to as. I think they'll feel more constructive in what they've done, giving back to their community. If you make it a positive, chain gang sounds bad, I get it. At the end of the day, we've got parks, we've got roadsides, we got cleaning to do. One year I was running against Maynard and I saw the county workers pressure washing at the courthouse. Actually, I saw them at the library. I saw deputies pressure washing at the courthouse. I asked the deputies, because court was closed down, why are y'all pressure washing? Well, they told us to. We got 300 inmates. You tell me out of 300 people, there ain't 2 or 3 that are post-sentence, that are trustees, that would love to be out here pressure washing.
So now when you say a chain gang, are you talking to actually a
No, I'm
chain
not
gang,
chaining them.
people chained together?
No, I wouldn't chain them. But what I would do, we're going to go to more of a traditional detention center uniform, jail uniform. I want to go back to stripes, not orange and white stripes, pink and white, purple, whatever, right? Whatever color we need to code it, that's fine. But we need to get back to that. Jail is going to control or dictate how people commit crime in your community.
So what would be, I remember back years ago, Hagee did pink. He did
Right.
all.
He painted the walls and made fun of them, but he demoralized them, right?
Now see, I do know that demoralizing. I mean, are you advocating for
I'm not
demoralizing?
trying to demoralize them, but we've got to create some type of persona that if you go to Randolph County, you don't want to go there to commit crime. We are so crime ridden. We've got to change our whole ideology.
Yeah, and I do know that there are some legal obstacles in there too, as
That's
far
correct.
as specifically. That's why I was asking about specifically chaining people together. I mean,
Right.
there's in all through. There's no Supreme Court decision, but there are many states that have state decision that has ruled. Alabama, for example, has ruled that chaining inmates together in a chain gang, and if you're
Right.
using that in a loose term
Right.
for
Right.
for a work group,
Right.
because chaining them together is a violation of the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution for cruel and unusual punishment.
Right. Right.
And I wonder if maybe if the stripes and pink. I mean, have you checked into that?
Yeah, I've not really looked in. Some of that stuff will have to be worked out, whether it's solid color or stripe.
Either way, you're talking about getting them out there and
Get
working.
them out here and get them to work. Let them give back, pay their debt. Let's say somebody gets 45 days, and we can hold them at the jail and say, hey, we go to the state DOC and say, hey, we like to absorb these 10 guys, 10 women, whatever, and we want to use them in our county to work. We'll take the liability. We'll take whatever. I think there's some legalities that we'll have to face, right? But we're not doing nothing now.
So how? I mean, how do you envision the the capital, the staff. How do you envision staffing that? How many? Do you have any idea of what it would take?
Just as you would as we have before. They would come around. The trustees would they help with cooking, they help with cleaning around the county facilities as far as like the sheriff's office. When we were there under Richard Early, they would clean cars, they would clean patrol cars, they would do whatnot.
Yeah, I think they still do that,
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
they?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I know 4 or 5 years ago, I think they were washing cars
Right,
and
right.
things like that.
Things like that. But I've not
Is that
seen.
unsupervised?
No, you would be supervised by detention officers. Yeah,
Okay, so
you
that
know,
would actually take some staffing
right,
to manage that program.
right. And that would
So
probably. I
are
mean,
those new positions, or how would
I
that?
would just utilize what we have. We're going to have to reorganize. I mean, we've got a lot of chiefs and not a lot of Indians. I pulled the stats a while back. I think under the current employment, for every one supervisor, there's 5 staff members. Well, I'd hate to know that most businesses ran like that. One person for 5 people. That's usually
Yeah,
like one person for 10, 15, 20, 30.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues there. When you talk about management and managing people, when you work in a squad of 10 people and the first 3 are supervisors, right? If my math corrects me, that's 7 that's being supervised by 3 supervisors. Well, we got 3 supervisors supervising 7 people.
So are we talking about rationalizing
Yeah,
supervisors to? Okay.
yeah. The ratio's got to change. There's budget issues. We're $36 million. We're over 100% greater than we were 6.5 years ago, almost 8 years ago, and it's growing. We're not, and a lot of it's salaries, a lot of it's upper echelon that has never been reconstructed or redone as promised.
So do we know what the budget is for the jail?
I've looked at it last year, but off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you.
Are they fully staffed? Do you know that?
I don't think they're fully staffed.
Um,
I don't think the sheriff's office is fully staffed at all.
the detention
In the
center, or just
entirety,
in general?
in general,
Yeah, because it's. I know some of your opponents have uh, made some statements about, because I don't even know how many pods there are. Is that certain pods are closed
right.
and inmates are sleeping on the floor and things like that? Are you
Because
aware of?
yeah, I've heard some of that. Real big. We all can request public records. If they don't meet certain criteria, they won't supply the record. Because it's not worded correctly, or are we really getting what we're asking for? And then they also got to worry about, are they going to blame it on that? What's the security issue if we tell them what's going on in the jail? I mean, I hear from people that were in there on a bond. They've committed a crime. They say, Eric, it's pretty rough. It's this, it's that. I saw people snorting heroin that they brought in either through some type of concealment in their internals.
I,
You know,
are there any safeguards?
I think
Any
they've got
X-rays?
density machines. They got X-ray machine, but remember, those things are only as good as those who are operating, right?
So does that indicate training issues, or?
I would imagine if they're starting still narcotics getting in there and people are getting charged, and I have noticed here recently they're not doing a lot of searches or a lot of showing of that stuff anymore. If you remember when they first got the X-ray machine, they were finding stuff. So all of a sudden, there's nobody being arrested trying to conceal anything. Like, you're not hearing about it no more, right? It's not that they're not doing it. It's not that, and sometimes I wonder if it's now, instead of charging them because it makes us look bad that we found it. You see what I'm saying? Like, to me, you've got the X-ray machine. If you find it, you stop it. But it also is a double-edged sword, you know.
But you don't know that for sure.
I don't know
That's
for sure.
just the metric has
Just
changed.
just to how we go from always reporting we're finding dope in the jail to all of a sudden there's no dope in the jail. Well, there's always going to be contraband in a jail. Always.
Always has
Whether it's
been.
coming in through ethical officers they've hired, or whatever. Somebody's going to bring something in there that shouldn't be there. It's tossed over a fence. It's something, you know. But all of a sudden, we don't hear nothing about that. It just stops, Just like we don't hear about drug bust until right before an election, you know.
So, as far as staffing goes, not just the jail, but staffing in general, across all departments, or all divisions? Do you know, are they full, or are
I've requested, the positions and what they pay, their names, so forth. And there's some of those positions that don't appear to be full. But that's a revolving door. You may have no vacancies today and 20 tomorrow. I think there's always, with the climate we're in, with the disrespect to law enforcement, and I'll be honest with you, Randolph County is not a place that people want to really go to work anymore.
so
You know,
why do you think that is?
Leadership. When we were, I was sued.
Yeah, I'd like for you just to dive as deep as
Okay,
you can dive into that one, and just tell me
I
your
was
thought
sued
process.
for 25,000 or greater by Mr. Greg Seabolt, our current sheriff. And in that lawsuit, he mentioned a lot of things that I talked about with his hiring of staff. The standards are almost obsolete, it appears. People with domestic violence history, people with impairment of driving, they're leaving other agencies because they've either violated state law or policies, and they're having to just fill a position with a warm body. I don't know what his reason for doing that. Most recent, which has caused quite a bit of stir.
So people with a driving while impaired offense, like recent offenses, or
Recent offenses, I just can tell you during his tenure, I have discovered there were news articles, there were deputies, they were hired, convicted, wasn't given a patrol car for an amount of time, and then brought back into positions they were in. Um, and and
so recent enough that maybe they had a limited driving privilege?
that's correct. Mm-hmm. No. As so recent that
Wow.
how many are watching that have a concealed carry permit? To have a concealed carry permit, it's going to be at least 3 years post conviction to carry a handgun in North Carolina concealed under a permit
For DWI.
for DWI. How many deputies has he got employed that can't even possess a concealed carry permit, but you can? Put that in perspective. But we got a badge and gun on, right? There's been a lot of hires that are unethical in their previous employment. That unethical behavior should not be rewarded here under our citizens using our tax dollars.
Without names, do you have some examples of some of those?
Yeah, Highway Patrol released a lady for sexual conduct on, in, and around patrol cars with other male counterparts. To
No,
the
is
point,
this accusations?
no, these are not accusations. This is actually public record. She's come here and been kind of fast tracked.
What do you mean fast track?
There's deputies been here for 18, 19 years. They're not lieutenants, you know. So
And this individual's a lieutenant.
yes, sir.
Is that because of their skill set, their education, or
Couldn't tell you. There's no rhyme or reason. I couldn't tell you that part. Again, we go back to that authority of the sheriff. We've got a lot of folks, and that's where I'm real big with tenure. Now, I'm also a firm believer, time doesn't equal experience, okay? But we go back to, if it's skill sets, Highway Patrol focuses in traffic. Deputies across the board focus on a magnitude of law enforcement avenues.
and less traffic?
And less traffic.
At least in Randolph County.
Right. And listen, it's so, at where she comes from is so, how can we say this? Lesser of a skill set, not that it's lesser what the deputies do, but what I'm getting at, a crash report now, many cities are using what? Have you seen that? They're using civilians, no badge, no gun. You have a bump up in a parking lot or in a road. Nobody's hurt. It's just property damage only. Guy pulls up in a little pickup truck, gets out, gets your information, fills out the report for you, and you go about your way. We go back to now those positions in which are holding badge and guns really don't need a badge and gun. They're
But now, certainly, you're not saying that Highway Patrol.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, you asked the question, do you think it's based off her skill sets?
Mm-hmm.
Well, her previous experience is not that of a deputy kicking in doors on a Saturday night on a
Okay.
domestic.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I said this in one run I ran against the Courier Tribune did a debate, and they asked us to do a closing statement. So Mr. Seabolt did his closing. It was my turn. So I closed. Well, they opened it back up for him to do another closing, right? And I said, you have a 15-year crime fighter or a 30-year ticket writer. I'm not down in what he did. It's facts. Who was coming to you, the neighbors, when the man was beating his wife, or woman beating the husband, or child being molested, or sitting in the woods for hours on end to catch the drug dealer next door, jumping on a trash truck, pulling a trash pull to find evidence of narcotics being sold? Who sat in a room and interviewed?
And you've done that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's sitting with the investigators while we interviewed homicide suspect? Who pulled people from burning homes on domestic violence? You ask yourself those things. And I put in perspective to the community, do you go to a vet who has a practice of medicine of animals to get your heart checked? He's a doctor. He's a doctor. One works on animals, one works on humans, right?
Yeah, and,
You know,
and one could argue, I mean, certainly the skill set plays a huge role in it, but one could argue that the sheriff's office, the sheriff, particularly the sheriff position, is more of a leadership administrative role rather than a hands-on do it.
right.
Certainly any position, not just a sheriff, any position, I don't care if you're digging ditches, my view is you're a much better leader if I've dug that ditch, because
That's right.
I know how to do it. And
Well,
so,
as someone as myself who enjoys leading, I will never ask an employee to do something that I can't do or have never done. If I've never done it, let's do it together.
which is a moral
That's
conviction.
correct.
Mhm.
That's correct. When I, I in this county,
Yeah, let me stop you right there.
okay,
And let me just ask you this. Now, how do you view yourself when you stack yourself up against your opponents with that respect?
I am I'm the fourth wheel. Okay.
Explain that.
The three gentlemen I face have been part of or affiliated with what we've experienced in this county for the last 40 years. Meaning,
And that brings up a term that you use a lot that I've heard you say, the good old boy system.
that's correct.
So dive into that and tell me a little bit about
We'll start the good old
that
boy
is.
system. Out of the four running, the other three, I'm the only one self-funded.
Mhm.
When you sit down and fill your paperwork out, you get to choose. Give state rights to your bank account and fund it yourself,
Mhm.
or you create a bank account and you take in funding and so forth. I choose to fund my own thing. I take nothing from nobody. That's where you stop the good old boy system. I owe nobody. The only thing I owe if elected is to do the job I've been elected to do. I owe nobody nothing but to what the law says I have to do. For 40 years, we faced what you just talked about, an administrative leadership sheriff. Really no one that really works, right? They're not used to it. Someone driven as me, am I going to go sit in that office 8 to 5 Monday through Friday? No, sir. Nope. I'm going to have an alternate schedule. This is me forward thinking.
Mhm.
I don't want to come in at Monday morning at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be out here. You might hear me check on it 12 o'clock at night.
So are you saying you're going to be out answering calls?
I won't answer. If I'm close by and a call comes out, what did they pay me to do? Right? Now, what I would like to see is, in my forward thinking, is when we get rid of that good old boy system, is when I get out here and work, it's going to make a happier employee, a more respected employee, and in return, the community is going to see that employee as a whole different light because they feel backed, they feel trusted, they feel respected. I mean, it just the whole magnitude of things change for them.
So, but what specifically is that good old boy system? If you had to kind of articulate that and put that into words, I mean, what
Corruption.
corruption? That's a big word.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I, I, anyone who's lived in our county long enough uses the same word I just used.
Okay, so now define corruption for me.
And what
Eric's definition of corruption.
it's making a decision to not do your job for the right reasons
You mean legally not do your
legally.
job? You're saying
Correct.
overlooking crimes,
That's correct.
showing preferential
Overlooking
treatment.
preferential treatment, overlooking crimes, using your authority, not using your discretionary authority, not to make the appropriate decision that should be made because of
And you know that happens now,
well, I've seen it all the time.
or now, or in the
Yeah.
past, or
Mhm.
so. And I guess what you're saying is you're self-funding. Nobody, you don't owe nobody nothing, and
That's correct.
so general statute so and so says this.
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
We
yeah,
the
yeah, you voted for me, but the law is applicable to you.
That's right. And the thing is I've been a victim of it,
How
right?
so?
I've been a victim of it.
What do you mean?
Let's say I've been waiting 4 years on a charge I got for moving a political sign on private property that was asked by the leasee to help move. I should never have been charged. The people investigated should recuse themselves.
Yeah, so I guess without naming names, go through that whole battle that you've had since day one with what you said right there.
Since we go back to 14 where I lost by 15%, they had to do something to get me out of their way. And they had to beat me down with vicious rumors, attack my job, whatever. When they attacked my career and I lost my job, I was asked to resign. I said, nope, not resigning. I'll proudly take termination, but I'm not quitting.
And that was at the county,
At City of Thomasville.
city of Thomasville.
That's correct. And the complainant,
Do you mind saying what that was over? What
it was over the riots in Charlotte with Black Lives Matter. I had blogged on those crimes that were being committed there.
blogged, like Facebook
Yes,
post?
Facebook.
Okay.
As a political candidate, people will know where I stood on the violent riots of BLM. I said if I was a lone American in the street of Charlotte, I would shoot and kill you based off general statute is what I can do. Did I deliver it like they wanted me to deliver it? No, not at all. I saw homeless people beat. I saw people ripped out of their cars on the interstate I-85. It was dangerous. People should have mashed the gas to stop the criminals from hurting them.
So you're saying now that your position hasn't changed, but just your delivery.
That's correct.
Okay.
So in essence, people will know if while running for sheriff, if we had those same things here, what would I do? We saw that here. Now, we don't solve injustices with more violence. I was always taught, like everyone watching, two wrongs don't make a right, right? We saw it in our own community where they shut down downtown Asheboro. The sheriff came out with a pallet of water. That's not something I'd have done. We'd have stood guard. We'd have made sure everybody was safe. We support, we'll always support peaceful protests. Get out of the street. We got people that have to drive through here.
Mhm.
Don't block the sidewalk. We've got people that have to walk on this sidewalk. You've got to be respectful in those avenues. We don't partake in any of it as a sheriff to support or don't support. We're there as a general safety, right? I would almost go as far as you do your peaceful protest, call us if you need us. Because you're peaceful protest, right? Be peaceful. You're adults, be peaceful. But we heard bad language. We heard what they were doing. We've heard it, right? But getting back to, I was removed from my career because I spoke out, and they had to do something. The person who complained wasn't even the person complaining. People complained to this person, and that person filed the complaint.
So they saw your post and they took issue with it.
Right. They took issue. Someone took issue, reached out to this person that could represent them as a community. They drove 45 minutes to Thomasville to file a complaint that I was this, that, or whatever their opinion of me was. I have a great case. But again, I'm not a sue person, right? And I'm not going to spend my money for a $20 hour job, right? I just stood my ground, laced my boots up. We'll keep going. And in this time, I've been attacked over and over. Now, did I promote those attacks by being voice and speaking up? Of course. I mean, they don't like it. I'm against the grain guy, right? We go back to a sheriff should be just a political leadership, person. I believe he should be a working sheriff. And that's what I've always promoted. I'm not going to ride around and look pretty. That's what this county's used to, hugging mamas and kissing babies. I got in law enforcement to protect our community. And protecting that community is going after the criminal element in which calls Randolph County home, which my job as elected would be to rid our community of much of that as possible. That's through very aggressive enforcement. That's nuisance abatement. You know, everybody watches TikTok or some
Okay,
type of
I don't mean to interrupt you, but for
yeah.
people that don't know, describe nuisance abatement.
Nuisance abatement is, and those watching will, I'll go over this. You got the neighbor next door who sells drugs, who ruins your community. It's a rundown home. They're not doing what they should do. They're a menace to society. We go out, we do an investigation. Let's say arrest the owner for narcotics. But here's what we're going to do even better. Say he's a renter. Okay, I contact the property management company. I reach out to the property management company. I pull the tax records of who owns it. I send them a letter on such and such date. We arrested such and such for distribution of narcotics, heroin, whatever it may be. Okay, you got two choices. We need you to start the eviction process based off of this going on in the community.
Based on criminal activity.
Criminal activity, we've made an arrest, this is what's going on. If that problem is not addressed, then we start a file, boom, and we start knocking the door in. Every time he sells dope, we kick his door in. We're going to take care of your problem. At some point, we're going to then get the county attorneys involved, and we're going to start filing court orders to start seizing that property, or we seize it.
So have sheriffs done that nuisance abatement in the past sheriffs?
Now, I think Richard Hurley did it.
So you're saying you would advocate highly for that?
Right. I advocate highly for it. And here's the biggest thing I think the people watching will enjoy. Property owners, I'm a property owner, an investor. I'm held liable for what my renters do. I feel accountable without the law ever saying anything to me. I joke and cut up. I need my rent by the fifth. I don't care how you get it. But really, you ain't going to sell drugs out of my homes.
Mhm.
If you're going to hold the renter accountable, you've got to hold the property owner accountable. And that's where the lack of communication is. If the sheriff's office arrests your tenant for selling drugs in our community, in our county, you're gonna get a notice to start the eviction. We're gonna give you the warning. It should be a violation of your lease by all means. If not, then you're sorry, shouldn't be a property owner, right? But we got to hold them accountable. But we go back to that big money thing, right? I'm gonna hold those big dollar guys accountable. Either you shut it down and start the eviction process, or we're going to nuisance abatement your property.
Mhm.
We've already done our side with the criminal aspect. Now we're going to have to do it with the other.
So, and we were talking a few minutes ago about some of these legal obstacles that's been forced upon you.
Right.
And you were getting ready. I think I may have interrupted you, but you were getting ready to talk about a couple of different ones or something. Or
The Mr. Seabolt sued me because they tried to make a criminal claim. They made 5 claims. 3 of the claims were criminal. You can't file criminal process on civil process, right?
so that's gone.
That's all gone. He did dismissed. We can't really talk about it.
Oh, okay.
But
So that's gone.
listen, my bank accounts it had no effect on it. Okay,
Yeah.
if that tells you anything.
Yeah. So
But at the end of the day, it was a political maneuver. The sign thing in Archdale, he stuck a sign up. The property renter asked him not to leave the sign. He left it. The property renter called me, asked me to take it down. Whether he used the F-150 or Eric Hicks, it was legal. They did an investigation. When it went to court, it was really, really bad for the sheriff and his folks. He had contacted the state's witness like 8 to 10 times. We had to sequester the sheriff.
so those are gone.
What happened was they said I didn't commit a larceny, I didn't possess it, But they said I damaged the sign. Well, if I didn't possess it and I didn't steal it, how'd I damage it? So I appealed that to Superior Court, where 4 years now they've not had my trial.
Okay, so that's pending.
That's pending trial, but again, 12 people are going to have to tell me I did something illegal.
Okay.
You know, I was just there. I have all the documentation. I went and saw the property owner, recorded her, saying in court she was mad I recorded her, but like my attorney said, if Mr. Hicks didn't record you, what would you say today? You're mad that he recorded you, so that tells us you wouldn't have told the truth, right? Why would you be mad if you said nothing wrong?
Yeah,
You know,
and that was the last
I've not heard
obstacle.
that's
I mean,
been
that's the last legal obstacle that you've had any
correct.
problems
Every
with.
time they've done something, I've had local attorney come at me years ago, and then took out a bogus charge for cyber stalking. Oh, here recently, I'll tell you this: my personal business has been in civil process. I was put through 2 criminal investigations. One I didn't know about by the county. District attorney said no, I did nothing criminal. They got mad. They go to another county. That district attorney, second time, says Mr. Hicks says I've done nothing wrong. And then 14 months later, 10 days after I apply for office, they take out a civil suit. So we're dealing with that. I mean,
Same
same
people,
people.
same issue, same topic, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
well, it's got to do with my personal business, but it's all been motivated by political trying to just stomp me even further.
Okay, and I did notice. I don't know, a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I saw a post that you made about it was a screenshot of a computer screen, and I think maybe it was reflecting the number of
Yeah,
units.
so what it was, I got an anonymous photo sent to me of a computer screen, which appeared to be of a CAD. And what CAD is what we call what officers, EMS, fire department, whatever. It's a CAD system, and it's communication data, and it shows officers on duty, and that's what it showed. It just said like B for Baker. It's alphanumeric, so it's a letter and then their number. So it's like B for Baker, and then was E for Edward, just military alpha code. And it didn't tell where they were at. It didn't tell the time. It told nothing. It was just a computer screen. Yeah, I could have took it from Las Vegas PD. I could have taken it from anywhere.
But your post was inferring that it was
The sheriff's
5 out of so many
yeah,
deputies, and then so many assigned to
right. So
Archdale
it
Trinity.
showed 7 deputies on duty. 2 were assigned to the city of Trinity, which have a contract with the sheriff's office for extra protection. 5 were left to patrol the county. And out of 5, somebody's got to be a supervisor. So you got 4.
So what's the typical staffing?
It should be 10 to 12.
So does that mean that they were off in training, or just are they that short?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I would hate to know that I laid my head down at night, and we go back to that leadership, laid my head down at night as sheriff, take my melatonin to sleep good, to know that a deputy could be on a domestic in Bennett, North Carolina, just inside Randolph County, on the county line of Chatham, or Moore County, that area, to know his backup was in Archdale, 55 minutes away. As a former deputy with the sheriff's office, my first homicide was off of Little River Road. Guy got hit with a baseball bat in the head. Found him dead, supine on the ground. I waited 28 minutes for my nearest backup, and that was in 2004. So from 2004 to that night, when you saw that CAD picture, we're still facing the same obstacle. Why, as a deputy in Bennett, screaming for help, if that had happened, got to wait 30 minutes for backup. And that's as hard as they can run, 100 plus mile an hour, blue light and siren. And that's if they get there safely. Without hitting a deer, wrecking their car, hitting somebody. That's if they make it safely. At minimum. That was me. My 20-some minutes was waiting for somebody to come northside Ashboro.
So
months ago, we had a homicide. Last year, we've had 2 unsolved murders, homicides. In the vicinity of Pinewoods Country Club on the back side of the neighborhood, a gentleman's been shot, 17 years old, in the back of the head. In Trinity on Fairview Church Road, a young man went missing at a high point. They found him shot and killed on Fairview Church Road. So 2025, we've got 2 unsolved homicides, among many others. Okay?
many other homicides?
Cold cases.
Cold cases.
Okay? Of homicide.
2 in 2025, and then some cold cases.
That's as I know of now,
Okay.
without pulling record or requesting more. I was sent a photo of the deceased body that was found off Fairview Church Road. I, I edited the photo to only show the feet for this reason. If you don't tell the public, because the transparency it's apparent transparency here is not very transparent. Okay, that was a tongue twister. Transparency here is very apparent. It's not transparent as it should be.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. Then they tried to do the same thing. I was told, hey, they're trying to get your phone because you've shared a crime scene photo. My photo changed nothing about the case, just like the other night. The CAD photo I got didn't interrupt anything. I took off date time. It don't tell where they're at. It endangered nobody.
Did it reveal any crime scene information that might give a heads up to a suspect?
Only thing it done in the homicide photo was, hey, there's a homicide on Fairview Church Road. It didn't tell you where it was at. It didn't tell you who it was. I knew all these things, but I didn't tell all that. Right.
So, and I guess this is just my curiosity. Why would somebody send you that?
Because they want the public to know.
That there was a homicide?
Yeah. The men and women of the sheriff's office, we go back to that vicious circle, can't do their job and be as transparent as they want to be with the public because of those political pressures.
So, I guess help us understand, if somebody's on a crime scene and they're sending you a photo while they're there, and how does that have to do with somebody that can't do their job? If it just happened?
I think it boils down to, if you'll notice, Randolph County Sheriff's Office on the homicide on Fairview Church Road never did a press release. The only people that did a press release on the homicide on Fairview Church Road was High Point Police Department. Located the missing person. Any further contact needs to be with Randolph County Sheriff's Office, because he was found dead, shot, and killed in Randolph County. Randolph County, Greg Seabold, the current sheriff, nobody has ever stood in front of a podium and said, in Trinity, North Carolina, this young man was found shot and killed. High Point Police did a press release offsetting, because we won't know if he was found, right?
On the same homicide.
Yeah, the same gentleman was missing, this child, 15. Now, we'll be honest here, he hasn't gone down the most squeaky road, okay?
It's irrelevant.
Right, but it's irrelevant. He's still a human life that's lost, as many have been lost in Randolph County. And the old saying, and I guess you've heard it, and many people have heard it, if you want to commit murder, what county you go to?
Yeah, I've heard you quote that before.
Randolph County, North Carolina. Famous author Jerry Bledsoe said that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a bookseller too, so
yeah, that's right.
You got to take that one, for what it is.
Right.
And I don't know how many cold cases there are.
Right.
That would be an interest.
Well, what's really weird, and I brought this up here recently, is the same crime, similar situation can happen. Guilford County, Davidson, High Point, Greensboro, Winston, wherever. Okay. Randolph County happens. I give it a 3-day rule. 3 days, you don't hear about it. 6 months, it's gone. Never hear nothing else about it, right? When victims, here's what we got. When you look around social media, social media is a double-edged sword. How many posts you see out of Guilford County, Guilford, Davidson, Forsyth, Alamance, about Terry Johnson, Danny Rogers? How many of these posts you see where victims are just so mad that their loved ones were killed? Have you read any? I don't. I see them out of this county. Why is a mama having to call the sheriff? Hey, I ain't heard from y'all. Hey, my son's been dead for 6 months. Where's the medical examiner's report? What are you waiting on? He's got a shot in the back of the head. Why do you need toxicology? Now, I get those things are needed in essence, right? Yeah. You always see our county, and it has for years, similar situations, similar homicides, whatever, happen all around us, but Randolph County, it always goes, well, no arrest made. You know,
Yeah, so
I don't understand.
I mean, I can understand over some period of time, but also I can see, just from my limited vision, I can see where an investigator or a department, whether it's a municipality or whatever, I can see where they would hold information close to their
Right?
vest.
Yeah.
But
You know, I've been asked recently by some homicide victims, what would you do, Eric? Listen, first, once you got the initial investigation, I said, listen, they can't tell you everything, but we're going to have a meeting. I'm going to call you, the father, the close knit, right? Just the mother, father, if they've remarried their spouses. We're going to come in, we're going to sit down. This is where we're at. This is what we're doing. It shouldn't be, well, I called the investigator. I've not had to call back in 3 weeks. That investigator's got to understand that's a mama, that's a father. At the end of the day, they've lost a child, they've lost a brother, sister, whatever. Simply call them, hey, this is where I'm at, this is what we're doing. But what I would tell you, I think as an administration and as a leader, if we can't go no further, then you tell them you can't go no further. A person would respect you more to be honest and truthful. It says, listen, we're at a dead standstill, than to keep BSing them and ignoring them. Simply call it what it is. Hey, we've done everything. Our leads are exhausted. Here's where we're at. Call them in, have a meeting one-on-one, and just speak to them. Treat them as a human being. I've not been a victim of a homicide. I've not lost a loved one due to being shot or killed, whatever, however they've lost their life. But that communication piece is paramount. Here's what I'm going to tell you, and this is what I tell these people. We got time to ring the red kettle bell for an election, but you ain't got time to call a homicide victim's mama. That's an issue. You got time to campaign. You got time to do your fundraising. You got time to call a victim's mama. You got time to go knock on a drug dealer's door. But that's not what's popular. That's not what's going to get him elected. You follow what I'm saying?
okay.
When you ask why I set apart between the other three, the 30 plus years of 40 years I'm telling you about, we've seen for a multitude of sheriffs. The guys I run against have worked for those multitude of sheriffs.
But is it possible, playing devil's advocate, is it possible that under the same context that this guy sent you this photo, it's like he knows he don't like what he sees and he knows nothing's going to get done? Is it possible that these guys that have worked for multiple sheriffs, that they didn't like they didn't like some of the stuff that they saw, and now they want to change it? And I guess where you're bringing this part out is they should have changed it when they should have tried to change it when they saw it,
Right.
not wait.
Well, and that's what I face now, running against some guys. For 30 years, they partaked in the failure in which I've been bringing up for years now. Okay? Why does it take retirement for these guys to step up to make those differences? So instead of, I gave up everything. I was willing to give up my job, my career, take a beating from the community, still take a beating every once in a while. It's fine, right? Why are you now here? What makes you come now? Why didn't you step up? Why was 1850 more important than our community? That's my, we go back to that drive. That's my drive. I wasn't worried about Thomasville terminating me. I wasn't worried about making somebody mad. Our community is suffering. Why are you waiting 30 plus years to step to the plate and now it's all wrong? You were part of the wrong. You didn't mind cashing a check every 2 weeks to be part of the wrong. I got tired of cashing a check because it was wrong. That's where I'm at with it.
Okay.
And some people take that as arrogance. It's not arrogance. My heart made me make a decision. I said, Eric, you can't keep cashing a check knowing there's so much wrong. If you partake in the problem, you are the problem. That's the way I look at it.
So let me ask you, touched on something. Let me ask you, because I had made a note that I wanted to talk to you about. Talking about, you mentioned cold cases. What would be your plan on cold cases?
We've had some,
Do we know how many there are?
I do
Okay.
not know exact number.
But there are some.
There are some.
Okay.
That's correct. I have a firm belief in this community that a lot of homicides are determined as self-inflicted. We've got a lot of self-inflicted cases. There's been some, a lot of hype over the Judy Rollins case.
Multiple times, right?
It was trash from the get-go. The investigation did not go well from the get-go. I will keep a lot of my thoughts there. We go back, good old boy, vicious system, right? Prominent people in the community, business owner in the community, little girl gets gone. Based off what we do know, well, when I worked at the sheriff's office on that case, we were told hunters and farmers found her. We weren't told anything else. I didn't learn a lot about the case until a gentleman that Robert Graves, former sheriff, brought in to do that investigation. And I get we go back to Hollywood, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I don't put a lot of stock in somebody
I'll ask you a question.
trying to sell a book. And I will say this, and I don't mean to offend you, but I think this goes back to what we was talking about before, where you've said some things and you don't apologize for saying them, but sometimes it's the way you say them.
That's right.
But I'm not sure that accusing someone of a crime that's already been investigated, a couple times?
I only know about law enforcement one time.
Okay.
And it was obviously we know that was shiesty
So how will you handle cold cases? What would you do?
I'm actually going to try to seek tenured homicide investigators from all around and see if somebody wants to come in and assist with it. Do I think
so? That's an additional position.
No, I would just see. What we're going to have to bring resources together. I can't. I face this in other. I've made comments on other things. I don't need, and I don't. This is going to come across offensive, and it is what it is. I don't need somebody who's working at a small town police department who investigates, bicycle larcenies to investigate homicides. Okay. If my biggest crime investigated at the sheriff's office by those who are now investigating homicides was car B&Es and going to pawn shops, we need advanced investigators, advanced in negotiation or in interview interrogation. We need that advancement. I understand going and listen to, I forget his name, the FBI guy, and taking your interview interrogation class. There's many people that can twist that bottle off there, but don't know how to turn it up.
And I fully understand that. But
so
I guess
bringing in those resources to look at these cases, but we go back to one thing we saw with the case I just mentioned was an apology from the sheriff. If I come to you and call Crime Stoppers, or if I call you on the phone, or if I put it on TV, everyone is a suspect of that homicide around her or adjacent to the case until further notice. The dog, the mama, the aunt, the cousin, whoever.
Makes sense.
If you get an inclination that somebody may be a suspect, you don't write an apology to them. You call them in, you investigate it.
So playing devil's advocate, you're elected on this next cycle. How do you source? When I say something, because nothing's free.
Right.
You're going to get, an experienced 25, 30-year homicide investigator, cream of the crop. It's going to cost some money.
Right.
So how do you
put a price tag on it?
But I'm saying, how do you source it is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you just gonna have to look at, here recently, one thing we saw when you talk about sourcing is, what are we using lap salaries for? Garages.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Lap salaries.
That's certainly another topic.
Right. You got lap salaries we could use.
So first of all, what creates lap salary?
Lap salaries, say you've got a 12-month tenured, right? Employees, each person is based off a salary for 12 months. They didn't work but 6 of them, and that salary goes that vacancy or that position goes vacant for the next 6 months. So if this, for numbers purposes, say $30,000. The first 6 months was 15. After that, there's another 15,000 left in that kitty, pretty much what we'll call it.
So in that kitty, that's basically a salary line item.
That's right.
So at the end of the fiscal year, does that money go back into the general budget to be
Well, in
relined?
Randolph County, historically, the commissioners have allowed the sheriff, and in many counties, the commissioners allow the sheriff, if they've got a $36 million budget, yeah, everything's line item, but whatever they got left or whatever they're using, they're able to spend on whatever they feel fit as long as they bring it before the board and they say, okay, that sounds good.
So if you have lap salary, then that means that you are short-staffed.
That's correct.
So if you're fully staffed,
You won't have lap salaries.
you won't have lap
You'll
salary.
probably have some because of begin and start, stuff like that.
Right.
But for the most part, you would have very limited lap
It
salary.
would be minimal.
That's right.
Okay, so then if you put an experienced cold case guy on, where would you envision? I mean, is that an increase to the budget? Is it a
Well,
shell
in
game?
the
or-
restructure that I'm foreseeing is you're going to see when positions become vacant, you're going to see a reduction in sworn staff for the simple fact, and when you reduce the sworn staff because you're paying sworn staff pricing, right, for clerical positions, you're going to start seeing civilian staff doing civilian jobs.
Okay.
In essence, it's going to free up funding, right? So
those people are going to be gone. They're not going to be rationalized to, if they're a sworn, let's say John Doe, Jane Doe is at the front desk, they're a sworn deputy, been there 10 years.
we would just reallocate. No, I'm not say sworn deputy. She retires. Okay, that position to be filled, I'm going to fill it with a civilian person to free up funding to where if I needed that extra funding, I've got
but
it.
what happens to her, that 10-year girl or
Listen,
guy that's at that desk?
Let's say that position. What I'm saying is, say, when a person retires out, we'll start transition positions from like a retired person that's sworn, okay, or who was, let's say they were there for, they retire out. So we fill her with a civilian position, freeing up $10,000, right? Because a lot of positions that we're paying, like at the garage, for instance, we're paying a gentleman $75,000 salary, not including benefits, to change oil and chase lug nuts, right?
Yeah.
With a law enforcement salary and benefits. So we're paying 6.5% of his 401k for retirement, plus his salary. We got $100,000 roughly, possibly or close to, and a gentleman to change oil. He's not chasing bad guys. That's a civilian position. Show me anybody who changes oil and chases lug nuts making $75,000 a year. And that's all they do. They may do a little odd work, right? I've worked in car dealerships as a young boy. I changed oil for $10 an hour. Now they're probably making $16, $17, not $35, $40 an hour.
So how many, because I don't have a clue, how many staff positions are there like that?
I mean, you got ID tech. You know, we go back to surrounding counties, Guilford, High Point, Thomasville, Lexington, Davidson County. They use a lot of non-sworn staff to do crime scene investigations. You don't have to have a badge and gun on to take pictures of crime scenes.
Right. And I guess what I'm getting at is if, what are we saying, 10, 15?
Let's say 10.
If there's 10, and let's say the average across all of them is 10 years. So do we go through another 20 years? Is that what you're saying? You go through, you wait till they retire, quit,
But
or get fired?
I think you just have to, there's always going to be some type of lapse salary, right? You're going to have positions come available. Do we offset those positions? We got to reallocate them somewhere. Something has to take place to reduce the budget to get better, not better employees, but more tenured employees. Or do we can do the, as you say, the cold case? How are we going to bring somebody in?
Yeah.
Or do we go out and search for a grant? Do we, instead of buying 20 cars this year, we buy 4? You know what I mean?
And I guess
there's so many allocations and so many things we have to look at. But just to sit them dormant in a closet, it's not working.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm trying to understand exactly what you're advocating for. If a person goes to, and let's just say it's a concealed carry counter,
right?
And let's just say there's a guy or girl there, that's all that they do. They do your paperwork, they fill all that out. So those are positions that you want to fill with civilians.
That's correct.
So let's just say the guy or girl that worked 5 years on patrol and then they transferred into there. Do they go back to patrol, or is their job gone?
We would have to transition them back to something more
So they're
law
not
enforcement.
fired.
Yeah, not fired. Yeah, yeah.
So they won't lose their job. They
No,
just
no,
go to a
no.
different. So if they go, they would have to go to a vacant position, and then the civilians would have to be new employees.
Right.
So you would still have, if you have 10 employees there, you'd still have those 10 employees. Basically, they're out of this bucket and they're going to this bucket, but then you have 10 new positions.
Right.
So that would be a
You
budget
would have
increase.
to.
Is that right?
Now, like we go back to, you're going to have people retiring out, and as positions become available, use lap salaries. We just going to have to reconfigure the whole sheriff's office. Everybody's, since I've been running for office, have said we're going to do restructure. Nobody's restructured.
Right. And I guess what I'm trying to
there's going to be, I'll be honest with you, if elected, there's going to be a few months of, am I going to walk in and say 1, 2, 3, 4, you're out of here? No. I mean, are there, obviously, I'm going to be completely honest. Are there people, if elected, their services won't be needed? Yes. I'm not going to sit here in these cameras and tell you a lie.
Is that due to, tell me why, what's it due
I'll
to?
tell you what it's to.
Yeah.
There's no professional standards. I shared a video a while back.
Is it because they don't have them,
I don't
or
know
they
what-
don't
I don't
know
know.
them?
I don't know what they got.
Would they have opportunity for remedial training, or just day two?
I'm a firm
day two, you're gone.
I'm a firm believer that from what I've seen and what I've read, from what I've watched, there's no reason they should have a job. I'm not saying you can't be successful in life, right? Do what I did, But at the end of the day, you can't. And what I believe, my personal convictions, spiritual and so forth, you can't hold a baby in a crib, forcing its face down, and come work for Eric Hicks. You
So,
have to go get a
so
job
what you're
somewhere.
saying, it really doesn't have anything to do with the job. There's just some folks,
That's correct.
they don't need to be carrying a gun and a badge.
That's correct.
Has nothing to do with their job.
That's
Just
right.
there's some people just
Yep.
in general.
When I can read public record that you had sex on, in, and around patrol cars in a neighboring agency that we support and that we help and that is our backup and then we're their backup, and you're not working for Eric Hicks.
And I guess it's just popped.
And I don't mind second chances, but there's a line. There's a fine line.
Where is that line on DWIs?
Here's what I'll tell you.
DWIs.
DW, you won't work for me.
Period.
Period.
What if it's 5 years later?
I would do a minimum of 7 years.
Okay, so that's the line.
That's the line.
Okay.
Here's why I say 7. Most professional standards, right? We've all got some skeletons. We've all done something. Now, I don't really use that term because, you always feel, well, what have you ever done? Well, this because you've done don't mean everybody else has done it, right? So
nobody's perfect. I know one person is perfect.
That's right. And in that, you have to have a standard. You've got to set that standard, because if we go back to, there's not a consistency. If you don't create a fairness isn't even a true statement either, a consistency. People, excuse my French, some people think I'm a jackass.
Well,
I'm
consistency
a consistent
is
jackass.
Yeah.
Right? Just be consistent with that, right? So people can respect consistency. But the problem is we don't have that, right? Debbie gets caught today drinking and driving. Maybe our current sheriff lets him go. Well, hell, 3 on my shift got caught drinking and driving. They're working for us now. There's no consistency. You'll hire them in, but you fire them when they do it. Like, I don't understand it, right? There's no consistency. I believe here's a second chance. What's wrong at Greensboro PD isn't wrong at Randolph County Sheriff's Office, because it's not a policy, right? Okay, we'll give you a second chance. You didn't put your tie on right. You didn't wear a hat on a traffic stop, whatever they got rid of you for. You had a misunderstanding with a supervisor who found you insubordinate, and after an internal review, we find it really wasn't insubordination as much as it was a personality conflict. Come on aboard. Well, we can correct it.
Let's touch on the budget right quick. I know you've talked a whole lot about the budget, and let me get your thoughts on that.
We're not, with the money we're spending in our county and the service we're getting, it's not correlating. I mean, essence, the photo I got. We got
So,
5 deputies. We're paying $36 million a year. We got 5 deputies working.
and I guess I've seen some of your recent posts that said when, I guess 2 terms ago, the budget was 18 million,
18, 19 million. Yes, sir.
and it's how much now?
36 to 37.
So, do you know what that difference is?
I mean, I addressed some stuff the other day. You know, we saw where he spent 2.2 million on patrol cars. When our current sheriff ran for sheriff, he got mad at at Sheriff Graves for spending 750,000. So he spent almost twice as much as Graves did, right? But 1.5 was for cars. The other like 700,000 or whatever, 600,000 was for all the accessories and all this stuff.
For how many?
It was like 32 cars. So on average, you're spending $68,000 to $70,000 per vehicle.
Just
So
regular patrol cars?
for Z70, well, 10 of them were Z71s. You know, why do we need the luxury truck?
What's
You know,
is that just tactical or?
I don't know.
So
We're told one thing, but we witness something else. We're told, well, deputies down here in the Seagrove area can't get to these 3 roads because they're so washed out and they're having to get out patrol cars and walk. Well, they're so bad, everybody gets home. Right? So everybody who lives there gets home, gets in and gets out.
Are you saying that those 10 trucks cost 2.2?
No.
Okay.
It was a total of 32 vehicles. 10 were the trucks.
Okay.
10 patrol vehicles.
And patrol cars are typically, that's an annual budget
Right,
item that
right.
they just buy them, they replace them, or and phase them out.
But when we're presented with it as the public, it's our sheriff riding around in a Z71 pickup truck, right? So he's saying he needs trucks, but he's utilizing one of them, right? So to me, you're needing more money to buy more trucks, but we're giving you one to ride around to and from work and whatever you're doing, right? Why would you not give that truck that you're bragging about and riding around in to someone who can use it to get to that house to help that family, right? How many times, Sheriff, are you riding down that road that you need the trucks for? Mm-hmm. Probably very little.
Yeah, and I know that you have I just saw I think in one of your posts you had said that as soon as you're elected, you're going to have a third party audit.
Yes, I think it needs to be looked at.
So is that I assume that's something that you as a sheriff could just do on your own. Do you know what the cost of that would be?
I don't. What I want to do is get with Will Massey and those folks with the finance with the county and really have that thing combed. $36 million. What are we spending $36 million?
That's a pretty big undertaking. I don't know. Could they do that in-house?
I don't know. I mean,
a $36 million audit?
I think it needs to be looked at. I think it needs to be, how do we go from 18, 19 million to 36 million? And you got to think, Guilford County, to put it in perspective for those watching, Guilford County runs 2 courthouses, runs 2 jails, High Point and Greensboro. So they're $86 million. They're 600,000 roughly population. We're 150,000. Now we are a bigger county land-wise, but population tax base we're not, right? So where's the correlation here? You know, why are we spending as much money we're spending, but we're not seeing anything change? Our crime rate's high, everything's through the roof. But when we ask questions or things are brought up, we're given smoke and mirrors every time. All we've asked as the public, or all I've asked, and I'll humble myself here, I wouldn't run for office if things were answered without smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, so I guess kind of
the news article, real quick, the news article about the trucks. Mm-hmm. We're on 3 private roads that aren't state maintained with houses that everyone who lives there drives those roads every day, rain, storms, dry, wet, whatever. But we use these 3 roads, and supposedly there's like 72 miles of unpaved roads. But roads are either private or state maintained. So I don't know how many are state maintained that aren't paved. But the justification was this area, and there's 78 calls a year. That's 6 calls a month at 12-month period. And out of the 6 calls, how many required a physical response from a deputy? Where it could have been grandmother calling about, a prescription's missing that you can take a report over the phone, or it could have been an alarm call that got canceled. We don't know, right? Without really deep digging into that. So we spend this type of money for pickup trucks when we could have bought a basic truck with four-wheel drive. The expenditures doesn't make any sense to me. But we go back to that business owner mentality. I drive a Silverado Custom, and one step above a commercial vehicle. These are fleet vehicles. These aren't your everyday vehicles. So at the end of the day, it's to get you from point A to point B safely, responsibly, and to serve the public. Why are you spending taxpayers' money on the finest things? We've got a 300 Chrysler V8 tinted out white that the chief deputy used to drive. Why does she need a Chrysler 300 tinted it out to drive back and forth to work? So we go back to those things. I start questioning those things. Because
So what you're saying is
the physical responsibility.
and it's kind of, and if I'm hearing what you're saying is some people, some agencies, not just this agency, but you're particularly saying this agency, they may be spending money a little differently because it's taxpayers versus theirs.
That's right. Yeah. And I heard old Sheriff B.J. Barnes say one time, the budget's like opening a bag of Doritos. If I eat the whole bag, I get another bag in 12 months. That's fine, but at the end of the day, you've got to be physically responsible for what we're doing here.
Yes. So this audit, I mean, to me, that would, and I'm not a finance guy.
And here's another reason for the audit. My biggest thing is see if there's any wrong, but also to keep me correct.
Mm-hmm.
It's twofold. It's not only for what's been going on, but so we stay corrected in our first coming in.
So is that something like lap salary or
lap salaries?
Or do you envision using that from lap salary or surplus money, or is that something you would say you go to the county commissioners?
I don't know why the county commissioners won't want it, right? As someone as a, and
I mean, they look at those budgets. I mean, they approve them.
But do they?
So they should know what's in them, right?
Oh yeah, I mean Congress does too.
Smaller number.
Right. But what I'm getting at is, are they really looking? They're all in cahoots, man. We keep going back to what my whole purpose of running. Something's not right. Heck, I might get elected, but hey, they were right.
So
and I'm dumb.
So would it be safe to say that maybe your goal would be to reduce the budget instead
I would love
of
to reduce
it?
the budget. Yeah. I mean,
I've never seen a budget reduced.
And you're correct, right? But I've also never seen one jump 100% in 6 years.
And that was going to be part of my questions for you is, do you know where that money is?
We can look at it all day, and I've looked at salaries. I've looked at, there's like I said, we go to just throughout the detention center. The first 3 positions, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, is paying about $250,000, $270,000. That's before we ever house anyone in the jail, before we hire any other employees, before anything. Up front, $270,000.
But that's not necessarily, or is it, the sheriff's discretion? Does that have to go through some approval process?
But we go back to every sheriff has talked about this one magnificent verbiage here: restructure.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Seabolt, which I think I may have seen you this, he said we're going to start a restructuring process. We don't need a lieutenant colonel. We still got it. He said he was going to get rid of the tablets, right? We talk about attention and sitting at start off by the detention center being somewhere you don't really want to go, and get rid of the commodities they shouldn't have. And we still got tablets.
So in your view, what's the purpose of restructuring?
The purpose of restructuring is to reduce that budget, okay? And then also in that restructure process would be reducing the budget ultimately, because we're paying so many people salaries that don't need those salaries. We're paying them. We go back to what we said earlier with the sworn staff doing civilian jobs, right?
Without sworn people losing their job,
right?
Yeah.
But you're going to have to reduce. There's going to be those positions inevitably. Just like when Sheriff Seabolt came in and said, "I ain't firing nobody, fire people." Right. Well, not fired, but let them go. No, the services weren't needed. I've already told you that's going to happen. I mean, it's not nothing I've done. Sometimes I have to address. I have to address something that should have never happened, and that's some of these hires.
Okay.
Okay. So those positions are going to come available. You know,
Yeah.
if they watch us, they know who they are.
Yeah. And so let's I'll touch on lap salary again. And this is just kind of my own personal thought. I mean, what is your opinion on, I guess, really how lap salary should be used?
Okay.
So again, lap salary, what you're saying is lap salary is money that's left over. You allocate a position for John Doe from July to June,
Right.
end of June, and they only work 4 months of that. So 8 months of that is still in the budget, but it's lap salary.
Right.
Is that just, in your view, is that just free game, or is that the taxpayers and it should go back to the county?
Two things. Go back to the county,
Mm-hmm.
and or I approach the county commissioners. Listen, there's going to be they keep maintaining a staffing issue. I hope, and we as a collective, as a community, hope we can change that moving forward. But those men working, you know, short staff, bring in other staff, use those lap salaries to help fund paying other guys to come into work, to help cover patrol, to help cover neighborhoods, to help cover special occasions or events or whatever.
On overtime.
On overtime.
On overtime.
Correct.
Or comp time, however they.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not a firm believer in comp time for the simple fact there's just some legalities on the federal work side of things, because, you know, in North Carolina, public safety doesn't have states' rights for employment. They're federally. Okay. So that's what a lot of people watching don't understand either. Officers, fire, stuff like that, they're federally mandated, not state. Okay. So that stuff has got to change too, but that's a whole nother ballgame. But those lap salaries, reducing those budgets, would be pushing that back over and or utilizing it for the men and women. It wouldn't be for me on a pet project, right? Spending $80-some thousand and being told not to start a garage, that $80-some thousand could have helped these men that could barely feed their families, protecting our streets. You know, that type of
As
stuff.
in a bonus, or
No, just, hey, we got, you know, 2 guys are off tonight. We need to keep the shifts covered. Would y'all like to come in and work overtime? There's plenty of people that would love to do that.
not necessarily increasing salaries,
Right.
but just using lap salary, because it is in a salary line item.
Right.
Use it as an overtime for somebody that wants extra hours
That's correct.
and can fill a shift.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
I think my whole point here is, any decision I make, what is it going to benefit? 2 things: the county as a whole, and then the men and women. I would rather put the men and women first than benefit it back to the county. Does that make sense?
What do you think is the most critical portion of the sheriff's office?
As far as the men and women, or as the service in general?
If you take every division, what is the most critical function of the sheriff's office? Is it the civil process? Is it courthouse security? Is it
your patrol division?
Okay.
Right. Your patrol division, and here's why I say that. Now, every aspect, those men and women are very respected. Your patrol division is your first line help to any citizen. Okay. Your next most important position, in my eyes, is your schools. We live in a time where we all kiss our kids bye in the morning. Probably your grandkids. They go into a building and we never know if they're going to return home. That's a realistic of today's time.
Okay, does every school have
It does not.
We call them SROs?
That's correct.
School resource officers. So is there supposed to be one in every school? Is that in the budget? Do you know?
At one time, they only paid, under the school budget, paid the sheriff's office contract for so many schools. The schools have gone out recently, from what I've understood and what I've witnessed in the meetings.
So the schools
went out,
pay for the resource?
They contract the sheriff's office. They pay a contract rate, just like the city of Trinity or Ramseur or so forth.
So that's not a county supplied typical line
Right.
item. So they say, I don't know how many schools there are, but let's just say, we have 10 schools and all 10 of them want school resource officers. Is it the discretion of the school board?
Correct.
And so
To
they
purchase that protection.
so that's in their budget.
That's
So
correct.
that's no
That's
money
their
off of
budget.
the sheriff.
So they contract with the sheriff's office, and those monies are then sent to the sheriff's office, whatever, from one bucket to the other, and they fulfill those positions. The school can actually go out and get contract law enforcement if they want to. You talk about the courthouse, right? Have you been to any other courthouses lately?
No.
Okay. Go to Randolph County, you walk in, the captain there is great, right? He's great. I see him there scanning folks. I walk in, I put my belt, take my belt off, they check my coat, hold my arms out. TSA, right? That's what we'll call them, TSA. Go to airport, right? 5 million people a day fly airplanes. You ever seen a TSA agent wear a handgun?
I don't fly. I don't know.
Well, they don't. I'll tell you right now, they don't. 5 million people a day. Go to Guilford County to the High Point courthouse or Greensboro. They have contract security running their scan machines.
Now I know in one of your previous runs, you had advocated taking those sworn positions and either contracting it or
That's
making them
correct.
civilian positions.
Go to Rockingham County, Sam Page. You go in his courthouse up there, you walk in, it's a security company. Everybody enters their pockets, they scan you, they wand you. There's usually a deputy there, assign one deputy. You go to ours, we got 4 to 6 standing there.
So
right?
how many, do you know how many sworn deputies are assigned?
I think it was
to the court?
20. Last time I looked, I think it was like 28. You can look at the county budget online, and last time I looked, it was like
Are
28
these the
positions.
armed security?
No, at our sheriff's
No.
office.
At what you're advocating, are these armed?
There is when I was at Rockingham, I had one of my personal properties had an eviction, and I saw one gentleman that I guess he's like a company police officer that stands there, and the other people are security, and then there's a deputy kind of roams the lobby, stuff like that.
So courtroom security. I'm sure all
Yeah,
of
that
our,
would be deputies.
okay, because I'm sure
Yeah.
all of our judges would
Yeah,
have
yeah,
an
yeah.
opinion.
It would all be deputies. Just like you go to Guilford County, you walk in and they're scanning people in. They're a contract security company doing that part. We've got to reduce this budget, and we've got to cut costs where we can. Are we offsetting it? Because at the end of the day, you're not paying an officer's salary, you're not paying the workman's comp, you're not paying their unemployment, you're not paying any of that stuff. You're offset. It's just like my business. I do a lot of work for other companies. They contract me because they're not paying my workman's comp. They're not paying if I slip and fall. They're not paying any of that, right?
Yeah. And I guess where I'm having a hard time understanding it is that let's just say there's, I don't know how many's in the courthouse. Do you know?
It says 28 on the roster.
So if there's 28, what do you envision you would cut that to? I don't even know how many courtrooms there are.
I don't, without really dipping down into it. I would tell you this. Anyone watching this and has been to the courthouse, I don't need 4 to 7 sworn deputies or whatever it is I've seen standing there scanning grandma's pocketbook.
Okay, so and understand your view on that,
Yeah.
but I guess what I'm trying to understand is just kind of that money and the savings. So it goes back to what we were talking about with the civilian clerks at the jail, whether it's concealed carry or whatever that may be. Then if there's 28, let's just say 14, half of them.
Right.
Do those 14 go to another division?
It would just restructure it to move them. There's going to be upfront to change everything. There's going to be a loss of positions as they come vacant.
Okay,
Right.
because that's where I'm trying to understand,
Yeah.
and I want all these folks to understand
Right.
is that in my mind, if we're taking the only way we're reducing the budget and we're saving is if those 14 of 28 disappear.
Right.
So, but if we absorb, we being the county in general, Randolph
Right.
County, you as the sheriff, if you're elected, you absorb those 14 into other divisions, and then you supply.
That would create a cost.
That'd be a cost. That'd be an increase in the budget rather
Here's
than
something we have to address. Just because it's been done a certain way for so long doesn't make it right. So whoever takes this position to fulfill like what I'm saying or what anyone else is saying, there's going to be an up and down with it. There's going to be a win, there's going to be a loss. And that's just the hard facts.
I guess what I'm saying is I believe that if you're elected sheriff and you come out and say the budget is going to be 40 million this year, but I'm putting X number of patrol officers more per shift, it's going to cost you, but it's going to be increased security.
That's correct.
I personally don't feel that that's a problem. But then again, you got to deliver on that.
That's correct. That's correct.
You know, I mean,
I'll be honest with you.
You can cut the budget back to 18 million, but then how safe is somebody going to be? There's a happy balance.
Well, we have been delivered. You know, we've been told a promise and delivered a nightmare, for sure.
And so, and I guess what you're saying is that somewhere between this 18 million and current 36 million, there's a lot of waste.
Yes.
I think you called it waste and mismanagement.
That's right. That's why we go back when I talk about an audit, it's twofold. It's to make sure we're doing what's correct and to make sure we start on the right foot.
Yeah. And in my mind, I just say, and I think an audit of any department's probably, it's well worth doing every once in a while. And it's just an audit of $36 million budget. It's probably pretty costly, and where would that money come from? That's my thought process. So, talk about the garage. Right. You've said it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone. I mean, so you're saying it's in the red.
Yeah,
it's a bad deal.
Now I'm no rocket scientist by any means, but just based off what I see salary wise for a gentleman, and I think it's like two guys, another full-time and a part-time. I mean, you're well over $100,000, you know, based off what they said they were going to do.
So, and I guess what I'm asking is now that garage is going, I mean, I hear deputies say it's a good thing. I hear people say it's a bad thing. You know, through what criteria are they evaluating that? And I guess I'll ask you that. Right. Through what criteria do you evaluate that it's bad and it needs to go?
The cost. I mean, up front, let's just do the bare basics. One salary, 75 to 85,000, whatever he's making. A lieutenant pay to change oil and do minor repair. Let's just do oil change at Thomas Tire. Oil change and a tire rotation. We'll give them $75 a pop, right, on a contract. It's probably going to be cheaper, right? That's what, 1,000 oil changes?
And as far as, yeah, I understand that. As far as on the garage, you know, we were talking earlier about you really can't put a price on safety. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, in my view, sometimes it's okay to pay more at a cost if there's a payoff here. Is it faster, safer? Are you hard and fast that it's gone, or is it you want to look at it, you want to evaluate it?
In my experience, if we had a county garage that county maintenance every department vehicle, there's a reason the county commissioners, the safety director at the time, and other county departments said, no, sir, don't do it. And he defined them by doing it, or defied it by doing it. You know, he defied their authority and what they believed in after probably a feasibility study. They probably broke down the same feasibility study and found what we found. You know, or anybody with an ounce of brain cells will look at it and tell you their feasibility study wasn't correct.
So do we know now, as far as the garage running, do you know whether whether it's losing money
Have no clue.
or even if it is losing some, are the benefits that they gain from it by paying a little more, is it worth it? It's kind of like with the
You know,
security.
you go back to, you know, people, some like it, some don't like it. As sheriff, I can't cater your feelings, you know.
Yeah, I
When you
mean,
when
it,
you
no,
get
I mean,
yeah,
it's
not you. I'm just saying like a
yeah,
staff member. Well, I liked it because I, you know, I didn't have to wait 20 more minutes, you know, or I
yeah.
didn't have to, you know, there when I'll go back to my experience, and for many, many, many years, Randolph County is 247 years old, right? And there was you got Litcher was sheriff for 16, Maynard was sheriff for 8, right? 20 plus years. A PO number, scanning a card at Thomas Tire got me an oil change anytime I wanted one.
Or do you know if there are some benefits, whether it's security wise? I know that there was some discussion about
Was the work actually getting done and
depending
stuff?
who was doing it,
Well,
to
when
what
we
quality.
go back to, you know, when you got a pet project, you want to sell it, you're gonna have to sell it.
So would you be open to leaving the garage open if it was staffed with civilian mechanics?
You got to show me that it's not costing us more than taking those tax dollars and putting them back in the community.
So the answer to that is yes, you'd be open to it.
The answer would be yes. If you can show me that it's more beneficial to leave the tax dollars in-house than it would be to go out-house.
So you would be looking at it strictly from a financial point,
That's
not
correct.
some other tangible
Do I
goals.
think there was a time that a local shop may have not tighten the drain plug all the way? Is there a time where they didn't tighten the oil filter? There's probably times them guys have done it. You know what I mean? Is there a time they didn't put 35 pounds of pressure? They put 28 pounds, I'm sure. You know, I think any basic function of field training and or an adult human with a vehicle has some type of common sense and understanding. Hey, I parked it in my car in the driveway, and I seen a bit of oil under it. You know, take it upon yourself to, hey, let somebody know. You know, there's still some accountability for vehicle operations. Do I think that's happened in the past using other vendors? I'm sure, just like that happens with our personal vehicles.
Right.
But is it creating it to where we need our own? Again, if the county had its own maintenance facility like Davidson or some other ones, we're all for it. Let's go into it. There's a reason we're 247 years old and we've never done it.
Yeah.
You know, not because we've never done it. You know, I don't like the old saying because we've never done it that way, but you got to make it make sense. And we go back to even the 3 gentlemen I face. They've never made a paycheck other than off the backs of the taxpayers. They may work part-time somewhere or whatever.
And so, but is that a bad thing, or
When it comes to physical responsibility, if you've never dealt with anything more than 6 figures a year and having to allocate and spend your money to, when I buy a company vehicle, I have to weigh options. If I buy a $60,000 vehicle for my business, how am I paying for a $60,000 vehicle? It ain't me run to the commissioner and say, hey, I need more money, taxpayer. So you've got to have that mindset. If you don't, you get 100+% increase in budgets.
okay? So, and I guess so. So if I'm hearing this right, is you're not 100% that it's shut down, but somebody would have to show you that it's
correct.
it's financially worth keeping. But outside that, you're about you're about 70-80%.
Right. Let's go back to the 2.2 million on vehicles, 1.5 on vehicles. The other 600,000 or so was for radios and outfitting. How much of that could we have cut just not putting brush guards on 20 vehicles? How much of that? The time it's spending to put them on by that garage, or if that's what they're using, or whoever. Just the allocated funds that they say, oh, that's fine, that sounds great, Sheriff. Just the free will of yes, or say aye. Everybody in favor say aye. They just aye. Nobody says, whoa, pump the brakes. And we got an accountant on the board. Like at what point do you? But it's election time, man. It's election time. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. You get my support, I got your support.
So you're saying through the commissioners and other elected positions, there's always this quid pro quo
That's right.
system going on.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear you.
Out of the four candidates running for sheriff, who do you think's not been to the Republican breakfasts? Who didn't go to politics in the park?
So do you think that if you're elected, do you think that you think there's repercussions, negative repercussions from that?
For me?
Yeah, for the position of sheriff. Like you've never been involved in
No, it ain't
you
going. It
run
ain't
as a
going.
Republican, but you're not
Yeah,
involved with the
it ain't gonna hurt.
GOP.
It ain't gonna hurt me. It's never helped me.
Do you think
Not ain't
it's
gonna hurt me.
advantageous to support the party that you're
Yeah, I mean,
running?
yeah, they want to do their thing. Here's what we've had over the years: is sheriffs who have a voluntold atmosphere. Hey, we need precinct. We got precinct meeting today. You know, we've got this, we've got that with the Republican Party, and they try to get all the men and women
So what's the
invested.
purpose of that?
To,
What's the
to it's an inferior, right? They make those employees feel inferior because if you don't help, you don't have a job.
No, I mean, what is the purpose for them to trying to get them to have? I mean, help me understand how the whole precinct meetings and executive committee meetings and all that
It
works.
creates a at the end of the day, it allows them that much more power in the county to make moves in other elected positions, and kind of, you know, I mean, I'll just be honest. Let's go back. We'll go back. 2014, I lost by 15%. Nobody in this county ran for sheriff against a sheriff but me. 140,000, 45,000 at the time, whatever it was. One person ran for sheriff. Two people, one died. What would be the most feasible thing to do? Would it not be appoint the man who ran for sheriff and or the chief deputy of the agency to continue the run for the next election? That'd be the two most practical things to do. The executive committee made the choice. The executive committee, who was controlled, chose Robert Graves, Greg Seabolt. One got mad because he didn't get it. One got it. The only person in this whole county that could be mad that was at that meeting was Eric Hicks. It was me. I walked in, I sat down in the pew with my uncle. We sat there. They didn't call my name from the floor. You got to be nominated from the floor. Somebody's got to call a name to be elected or be appointed. Okay? That's where your powers come in.
So do you think that will, if you're elected, do you think that'll create obstacles for you?
No. I mean, they already don't like me. I don't have to partake.
So would you try to bridge that gap?
I mean, I'll be respectful, right? But
would you try to become an active member of the GOP or
active? Nah. I mean, well, most of my run the entire time for 13 years has been I'm not a. Why they don't like me is because I can't be controlled. You know, I don't go to the breakfast on Saturdays whenever it is. You know, my assumption so far and what I've seen is that nobody else is attending them till election time, right? Well, if I've not attended now, I'm sure not going to attend them in the next few weeks.
not so much attending as it is supporting the
I support the party, and being elected, I have that seat on the executive committee because of the election.
Okay. Homeless population. Give me your thoughts on.
I spoke about it before it ever started.
Homeless has been around for a lot of years.
There's been homeless, but not to the magnitude it is now.
Define homeless for me. Don't say somebody without a home.
Yeah, someone without a home. Someone who does not have sustainable structure to live in, or it could be a structure you can live with friends or family, whatever. My definition of homeless is someone who does not have sustainable housing.
Is that by choice or by no fault of their own?
I would say more than not, it's by choice of their own choices.
So is that person considered homeless? I mean, yes, they don't have a home, but
I think you have those who choose to be homeless, not have a home, and you have those based off their choices of drugs or their lack of better terms, their own choices. They place themselves there.
So whose responsibility ultimately is it?
It's not the sheriff's office.
But the sheriff's office has to deal with it.
That's correct.
So
So what we do there,
how do you view dealing with that?
you hold Health and Human Services accountable for what they need to do. You know, in recent weeks, we saw where the sheriff was trying to use the detention center as a safe place. Now, I, as anyone else, if a deputy ran across somebody who was cold and about to die and needed somewhere warm, you get them somewhere safe. Our county commissioners,
Just out of basic humanity.
that's right, basic humanity. Nobody can fault anybody for that. Our county commissioners and our director of public health and human services need to get their rear ends up and find a solution. Quit putting it on the sheriff's office. I support Greg on this aspect. It's not his job to tend to the homeless. However, if they run across somebody, I'd expect him, his deputy, or anyone else to get them somewhere warm. We have a $65 million agricultural center. But you know why they won't open it up? Because they don't want the liability. Once you open it up, it becomes a liability. There's some other issues, right? If you build it, they will come. If you feed them, they will eat.
Okay,
right?
so
But let's get to the original. Here's what started our growing population of homeless. Courier Tribune has deleted a lot of articles they did where I was getting attacked by the loosey-goosey nonprofits, right? Mom and pop opens a nonprofit, their child dies of an overdose, which is bad, I get it. They feel failure, they feel whatever, their emotions. They want to start whatever they want to start this to go after the addiction issue. They got kicked out of a place or asked to be removed from a storefront on North Fayetteville Street. A nonprofit did.
So what did the nonprofit? What was
They were
function?
passing out apparatus. They're falling under the Good Samaritan Act.
You're saying needle exchange?
Needle exchange, stuff like that.
Is that all they offered? Did they offer counseling?
I think there was some
help,
counseling,
rehab.
Rehab. If people want to make those choices, they'll get them where they go. And again, we go back to basic humanity. Someone who needs help, ask for help, help them. Okay?
Who helps them?
Whoever the resources are.
Is it your view that it's the sheriff or the sheriff's deputy's position to help them?
No. But the only thing I would say that we should do, here's a pamphlet, here's a place I can take you. We call them, you got intake, yes. Here's this conversation. We're a mitigating factor as far as, hey, we found them, they want help, they're tired of the lifestyle they're living, can you help them? We'll escort them there, in county, whatever. We put them in contact. That initial contact, cool. Well, I'm cool with that. Like anybody, right? Go back to basic humanity. As far as us riding around picking up homeless people using as a Gold Star taxi, no. If we run across them, they need help, get them somewhere warm. But the Health and Human Services and the county commissioners have got to create something. And I'm going to go back to churches. There's a magnitude of churches in this county, hundreds of churches. How many opened up homeless shelters? I'll wait. Hurry up now. Oh,
yes. So
how many churches opened up?
Yep, I have no clue.
I didn't hear of any. How many church bands went around, got the homeless people, brought them in their gymnasiums?
So, yeah, or let me ask you: do you think that there's a distinct difference between a homeless to no fault of their own versus a vagrant criminal?
Yes, yes.
So, is it your view you treat them the same or different?
I mean, I think in that aspect, if they're homeless and wanting somewhere warm to go, you treat them all the same. I don't know how we go back to the snowstorm we just had. You find somebody on a bridge freezing to death, whether they're on their own or they're a criminal, you help them.
Yeah, and see, this wouldn't be as large a problem for a sheriff as it is for municipal,
right? Because
of the congregation within a corporate city limits.
Well, see, here's what I'm gonna go back to. When we go back to, we've had a charismatic, and I'm gonna go further. I'm gonna go political here. Obviously, we've got a lot of hidden Democrats that are Republicans. And historically, Republicans are a little more hard-nosed with these issues. What I have faced, and where a lot of my comments and people coming at me come from, I said before, I did the article, Vancouver study shows where there's drugs, there's sex, where there's sex, there's drugs, there's promiscuity. Disease rises, overdose rises, all this stuff goes sky high. Homeless rates rise, all that. We now have 2 very large companies in our county, and everyone that is employed there, or majority, don't even live in Randolph County. Toyota and Ross Distribution is getting ready to open up. We lost Klausner Furniture, held them suckers down for a long time, right? A lot of people lost their jobs due to equity groups. Anyone who understands financial understandings, understand equity groups are for money. If they ain't making money, you gone. We're getting rid of it, right? If you can't bring industry and can't bring jobs, but you also facilitate drug addiction through all these nonprofits and passing out needles. I was putting up signs over here on High Point Sheriff the other day, and there's needles on the ground. I got them up, put them in containers, and got them disposed of properly. But when I spoke on these things and brought it forth, we're handing out needles, hundreds of thousands of them. What do you think is going to happen? Homeless population rises, overdose rises, disease rises. I'd hate to know what our disease rate is. But we go back to, we are a small population, 150,000 people.
Right. So is there some segment of these folks that victimize people?
Oh, yeah. Well, I speak against the criminal addict. And I'm going to be blunt here. If you want to go buy your dope and you shoot up in your house and you pass out, that's your choice. That's your home. As long as you ain't got kids, you by yourself, and it's your body, your choice. Okay? Everybody wants to scream that stuff. You got here and you break in Charlie C's or start, trespassing and stealing, and that's what we have to address. But they focus, here's what really blows my mind. I've made this comment a lot. Sheriff Seabolt will go down here and have a hot dog supper on Saturday for a loosey-goosey nonprofit to pass out needles at Needle Exchange, and his deputies get poked on Monday morning. Somebody passed out a stoplight trying to get them out of a car, get poked by a needle.
Has that happened?
I'm sure they've had
not as far as getting
poked, but
not as far as getting stuck by a needle. I mean, as far as current sheriff holding.
Well, he don't hold them, but he goes to them. The fundraisers for the nonprofits, and then these nonprofits.
He just attends somebody else's fundraiser.
Yeah, attends them, and then they hand out the needles, and then his deputies got to deal with them on Monday. And then they're on the sheriff's office who got busted this week. Well, we got Mary Jane and Sue over here, 2 girls arrested for narcotics. Well, what made you think they didn't have narcotics? But you gave them the apparatus Saturday night because you're going to help them shoot up safely. It's a vicious cycle. It's not stopping. But how many dealers have we put in jail? How many houses have we taken? How many have we nuisance abatement? How many signs we put in the front yard? Sheriff Hicks and his deputies kicked this door in. That's going to look good. We take that $300,000 Bearcat, instead of riding it through parades and career function days, we run it through somebody's front door. That looks good. That tells people stop. You look at successful sheriffs around the country. When I asked municipalities where I have properties, and I said, "You ever leave these areas? You ever go look like Mebane or Concord or Salisbury, and look what their downtowns do? Like, what are we doing? What are they doing that we're not doing? Right? So when we look at sheriffs around the country, like Grady, Polk County, right? People love him. Well, he'll run his Bearcat through your front door in a heartbeat, right? You start doing that people stop. You start putting people away, and you start teaming up with the DA to put people and take these cases to a federal level and get them the hell out of here, you'll start seeing neighborhoods change. You start holding the county agencies responsible for their piece of the puzzle, homeless, health and human services, all this stuff. You start holding them people accountable, then you'll start putting this puzzle together. But you can't blame the sheriff. The sheriff isn't health and human services.
Just because I know a little about this is all. You can talk to whomever you like in that store. They don't own the property.
So what we do,
the manager of that store can't give you, as the sheriff, the authority to arrest somebody for trespassing that's on their property. It's got to be a home office. And if it's a home office, do they care?
So here's what we do. Mm-hmm. Now you got to be.
See, these are the solutions to the criminal aspect that I'd like to know.
Let's go back to years ago. Many watching, if they're from this area, will know this. City of High Point. How'd they stop cruising? Remember, they had the trespassers. They're doing donuts in the parking lots, being a menace. They went to every property owner and they had them sign a contract allowing them to be active agents of their properties. So we contact these property owners, we take liability off of them.
But what do you do when the property owners are in Arkansas?
As far as you're
Or
gonna
you have a strip mall where it's an investment company that owns the property, but each individual.
I would tell you that if I rent a storefront and I have a right to be on this property based off my lease, I would tell you any one of those people would have been an acting agent for that property. I don't know why you couldn't do that. I mean, they're all a victim and or acting agent of the property. They can't. You can be the reporting party and or the victim, right? You can be both. So I would tell you that we would have to.
But as far as doing a trespass,
You would have to become an acting agent of that property. I would tell you that we would aggressively seek that property owners, just like other cities. I'll bring back the cruising issue in High Point. They became active agents of that property, have them sign a trespass agreement to where if we catch people trespassing, we take them to jail.
yeah. So I guess revisiting that back again, then there is a degree of responsibility on the sheriff.
Right.
From that criminal
if they're not going to if they're going to be pushed back as far as, well, we don't want to get involved, or we're going to take that off of you. We'll be involved. That way we can address it.
Yeah. So I can tell you that out of all the messages and emails and things that I've gotten, that's one of the biggest ones. People want to know. I mean, there's advocates on both sides, but there's people that want to know, and it's, in my opinion, it's a dual problem. You've got the homeless aspect of it,
Right.
and then you have a responsibility, in my view,
Well, here's
of
how
the sheriff or the police chief or the municipality or the county. But as the sheriff, going back to Polk County, you were talking about, you got a responsibility to protect some group of people from that criminal element. And what people are asking me through these emails and messages is they want to know, what would be your plan?
So my plan would be to aggressively approach, not aggressively like being mean,
Yeah.
attacking the situation.
Proactively.
Listen, you're getting free law enforcement. Not really free, but what I'm getting at, we're going to be acting agents of your property. We catch these people. Here's what we're going to ask you to do. We're going to assess the building area itself. We'll send them a property assessment. Hey, you've got trees that could be cut, get the shrubs cut out, kind of get the homeless camps moved on.
What about the homeless camps that are set up on state right-of-ways?
Well, DOT needs to address that.
So do you think that...
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. If I can't put a sign on state right-of-way without permission, they can't put a tent on it, my God.
Yeah, so would...
Trash is trash.
I guess, would it be appropriate to assume that if you're going to go to the business owner, you would also try to work with state officials to create some type of
we would
policy?
have to create something to allow us to be the acting agent for the properties.
So, I mean...
And we go back, that goes back to community-oriented policing. That's the basic fundamentals of what we do. Creating the sources, and just like we go back to see at High Point, when they did that for cruising, it's obsolete now. There's no cruising in North Main, and it hasn't been for years because they aggressively approached those business owners and said, listen, allow us to be acting agents, AKA off-duty security, pretty much, but they're on duty, and they make those charges.
All right, switch topics on you. Uniforms, tattoos, and facial hair for deputies. What's your opinion?
I believe we set the standard with our uniform. Presence is the first level of force. If you come out looking sloppy, you're going to get a sloppy attitude from those you're serving. I believe if tattoos...
All right, so what does that mean as far as sloppy? What is that?
Yeah,
help me understand what that means.
Uniform-wise, I'm not saying you got to have creases in every pant leg. Right?
Is the current uniforms acceptable to you?
They would be if they kept them cleaner than what they are. The boots clean. There's a sergeant recently retired. He worked in my area. Always looked good, right? Rainy days, snowy days, muddy days, rinse your boots off. I don't mind an outer carrier vest. you know, we've got to present ourselves professionally. If you don't present yourself professionally, I'm not for beards, facial hair. You want a mustache to the side of your mouth, that's fine.
So if you're elected, beards are gone.
Beards are gone.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't mind an
So
outer carrier.
help
as long as it's
everybody
clean.
understand also in uniforms, there's different types of uniforms,
Right.
right?
So a normal patrol uniform, you're looking at probably a Class C uniform, right? That's outer carrier vest, cargo pants, you know, 6-pocket pants, whatever you want to call them.
So when is that applicable and acceptable from your
On everyday function,
patrol?
stuff like that. If you're serving court duty, you're going to be in a Class A uniform, at least Class A. Class B is
Tell
usually
everybody
no
what a
tie.
Class A uniform is.
Class A is, you know, patent leathers, you know,
Shiny shoes.
all
What
that.
is. Yeah.
I'm not certain that every day at the courtroom, you know, some of that's kind of relaxed in the courtroom, you know, maybe a work boot, something like that, but everybody's going to be color coded and matching. You're not going to have to worry about if it's a professional deputy or not.
And no beard.
And no beard.
Yeah. Tattoos.
Tattoos, I'll be honest with you, I think if you have a tattoo, it's going to be a long sleeve or something to cover. They do make a sleeve cover now. A lot of guys wear.
Any tattoos or what they call sleeves?
I would tell you anything that's showing from your, if you ever want a short sleeve shirt, anything below the short sleeve shirt to your wrist.
You're going to wear a long sleeve. It's your experience on working drugs. Because 2 of your opponents have extensive background in narcotics investigation, enforcement, or so. Tell me what kind of where you're at.
I was
that.
more.
Did you ever work in a specialized vice unit? Or
no, I'll be honest with you. I found a lot of dope working traffic stops, and actually, many times I would get myself in, you know, interagency debates with folks just because I was finding more dope than vice narcotics.
and that turns out to be just
there's
a
a
competition.
there's a
healthy
skill
competition.
set, and there's also a skill set, right? I would get, well, how are you getting information, Eric? Well, I can't give that up, you know. Then that ruins my informant, you know. I find just as much dope in a uniform and a marked patrol car than they did with a Toyota Camry hiding in the woods. You know, you just got to know people. You got to know what you're looking for. You got hundreds of hours of training that you've got to implement. You know, never made bad case law, never made case law with my stuff. Not that it could or couldn't have made it, but usually if I was on it, I was on it. You know, there's guys that I worked with that was like, you couldn't hold a candlestick to him.
Yeah. So now, as a sheriff, you're not per se going to be working drug cases,
right?
But how would you respond to your opponents that may tout their experience?
Well, let me address
their seizures, their search warrants, their forfeitures, everything that goes along with narcotics investigation. And I'm not saying they say that, but I'm saying, how would they say he doesn't have the experience that I have?
How do I address that without attacking it? So here's what I will say. Many internal agency divisions are based off of a system of favoritism. Okay. And in that, establishing those positions, they will tell you, if they're honest, how many times they were able to maintain those positions and why. You know, one was a task force officer, been in many years. Task force officer is the teacher's pet. Let's be real here, right? Many times those positions.
But does that mean they're not effective?
I'm not saying they are or aren't.
When you say they're teacher's pet through that selection process.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I've
so
been in those positions.
Yeah, so they may function well, but they're they're as somebody may call a fair-haired child.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. If one opponent was so great in the drug enforcement arena when he went to work for an agency, why didn't he go back in it? Why did you work 5 years in a city patrol car?
So,
in essence, I think we've all played a part in drug enforcement, no matter if it's the beginning level or in a magnitude of multiple agencies coming together to create it. The effectiveness is just as great on either part.
Okay. I don't think you have experience in writing search warrants.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Search warrants,
So,
executing search warrants.
mhm.
And there was times we wrote search warrants. We said, hey, let's pump the brakes on this one. Let's take it back, refile it later because something didn't go, the delivery didn't go like we thought it would, or
Mhm.
whatever. Why are we going to waste a search warrant and interrupt the case?
So,
Search
and what
warrants on
about
car.
forfeitures? You got
Or,
some experience
or yeah,
with
with dag
forfeitures?
monies. Yeah, we dagged them. You get money, you bring it in, you fill all your paperwork out, you dag it, submit it to evidence. A lot of times you submitted the initial dag and then you submit to evidence, and the evidence clerk
Okay,
is
explain what a DAG by the DAG.
um, it's based off the amount of drugs you seize from someone and then what they can take out of that for taxation. And that's where you enter, you just, fill in the blank. And I'm not going to try to be rude when I say this, but it's not rocket science, right?
Okay,
None of
yeah.
this is. It's if you, and here's something I'll address real quick. A lot of these guys will say, well, we see $6 million. Okay. But you only got 150,000 of it back, right? Just because I catch Johnny with 5 crack rocks,
But they still seized it.
they seized
They
it.
still got it off the
They
streets.
seized it, but they didn't get it. It got gave back, right?
Yeah, and
Because
ultimately, at the end of the day, it was given
well,
back
a
to
lot of
the.
times money is,
Okay.
if it's not taxable or they don't owe the tax, you'll say what they got was uh, tax worth $500, but they got $1,500 off of them. They get their money back. You can't keep their money, right? You got to correlate it, right? You got to say, well, this is where they got the money from. You got to prove all that. You got to get through suppression. They might suppress your case, probable cause hearing. It's just you can say we seized all kinds of money, right? But the bottom line is what did you get back? You know,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times these numbers, I think a little different than a lot of other folks. When someone tells you they've seized $6 million or whatever the number may be, and then when you pull the U.S. Uh, asset forfeiture funds and it shows 150,000, either you seized a lot of money that you shouldn't have seized, something happened. Right? Would you agree with that? I mean, if you say you see 6 million and at the end of the day, at that year, the U.S. government wrote you a check 14 times and only estimated 150,000, something went wrong with another 5 point some million dollars. Where did that money go? It gave back. It went somewhere. It had to come back. Now, there's been times I've seized money that we had to give back.
And I wouldn't expect. I mean, if you never worked in a specialized unit, I wouldn't expect the answer to this to be yes. But have you ever had an opportunity to make like a drug case, for a forfeiture, a seizure, and then run that up to the federal level and work with them through adjudication?
We did adjudication through some of the interdiction stops,
Okay.
working multiple
And
agencies
that
and
made them
officers.
federal.
Yeah, they went
Okay.
federal, yeah, with Meineke and those guys. And I mean, that was obviously years ago now, but, and they only accept certain cases. It's not, and that's what, people watching you understand too, is you got state side and you got fed side. And there's something I want to say real quick when we talk about interdiction and drug asset forfeiture is when you put those guys in those positions, those have got to be some of your most trustworthy, won't do no wrong. Our triad area has been pretty fortunate, but we've had some pretty bad undercover vice folks. I'm not saying
How
Randolph.
long should somebody be in vice?
I would say no more than 5 years.
I guess, would you, as a sheriff, would you look at them individually with regard, I guess, to their work ethic, their character, their productivity, and say,
Well, many times,
7, 8, 10 years? Yeah, I mean, if
here's what I'm gonna tell you. I would rather take someone at a 5 year mark that's been in that position. And many times to cultivate your leadership in your agency, you want a well diverse officer, right? And so to me, using these specialized units, many agencies start patrol, work your way up, openings become available, you apply, you go through your interview, you learn that experience, and then it cultivates leadership. That's what I would rather see than to let somebody ride this gravy train in this cool car for 8, 9, 10, 15 years.
and
I
I think most do that, don't they? They work their way up.
Yeah, most try to do that.
Yes, I guess regarding the vice, the vice folks, there's how long would you say that it would, let's say, John Doe is the sheriff and he puts Eric Hicks in vice and narcotics. I'm sure there's some amount of time that it's going to take you to build up some sources, some confidential informants, and then be trusted, get efficient in search warrants and court orders and forfeitures and the whole gamut of all that. How long would you say that is? I mean, is that a year or 2 years?
I would tell you 24 months,
So 2 years.
but it don't really depend, again, you go back to the work ethic and drive of the individual. Many times, a lot of agencies use a lot of specialized training like PLI and other things as a career ladder.
Okay, explain what PLI is again.
Police Law Institute
Okay.
talks about search warrants, case law with search and seizure. And many times you'll find people who wear badge and guns are the furthest thing of knowledge of any of that, unfortunately, but you've got to be sound in those areas. When I see young officers, I'm like, hey, you ever been to Police Law Institute or anybody that teach you how to write a search warrant? Well, no, we just do AOC search warrants. So nothing about your experience or what you've done or writing a little bio about so you can present it to the courts. Have you gone to Superior Court judge to get a search warrant signed? No,
Yeah.
just the magistrate.
So if it takes them 24 months, then it takes 24 months to get a 3-year payback on them.
Well, I mean, it all depends now I can only speak from my experience, okay? In my experience, my cultivating somewhat of an informant started patrol, right? All these guys want a cool car. Give me a bicycle. I'll ride you down neighborhood and find what I need to find, right? That's who I was. I didn't sit in a car. I mean, there's video after video, there's photo after photo where I've chased people, caught people. You've got to get out of that patrol car. If you want to be what you should be, get out of your patrol car, know your neighborhood, as around here, get out, talk to people, get to know who people are, understand that you can't learn your community, you can't learn your job by saying 10-4 en route, 10-4 en route, 10-4 en route.
Which goes to your earlier statement about proactive policing.
That's correct. There's something that we used to do in the city. County may do it too here, and they may do, I don't know, I didn't do it when I was here, but Meals on Wheels. A lot of the guys didn't want to do Meals on Wheels. Your most nosy people, no offense here, or a lot of times you're elderly. They know when you leave for work, when you come home for lunch, the milkman's coming or not coming that day. They know everything, okay? They can tell you verbatim.
Yeah.
I would deliver Meals on Wheels and find out more from my elderly folks. How's your neighborhood? Well, house next door, little something, Keep eye on it for me, Mr. Hicks. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I keep eye on it. I'd deliver meals a couple more weeks. Have watched that house, stopped a few cars. He said, we saw you. We appreciate it. Stuff's calmed down. That respect building there, but stopping those cars leaving that house, guess what I built? 2 informants. Got a little bit of weed off of them.
And does that go back to the old, what you had spoken on earlier, the old community policing
fundamentals
as well. So, all right. So, I mean, we've talked about a lot, and it's been a good conversation. But what is something that I didn't ask that you would have wanted me to?
I'm about policies, principles, and ideologies. Those 3 things. Neither one of those 3 things has been cultivated in our sheriff's office. You've got the ideology, right, of the Republican stuff, the policies of that. But outside that, man, we've never had anybody that will serve the community open-armed across the board to address the criminal element that has now is starting to ruin our communities.
Okay.
We've never had anybody to step up to allow men and women to do their job unapologetic, come in, give the citizens, they pay you, they work you 12 and pay you for 8 of them. work your ass off, and be rewarded with somebody who will stand behind them or what I mean is stand in front of them, they're behind them, or shoulder to shoulder, and protect this community as a whole. That we've never had it.
Okay. So the last thing
Mhm.
might be the hardest one.
Okay.
Take each of your opponents, and I want you to tell me what you view as their very best characteristic that you know about them. Something
Okay.
positive about each one.
I'll start with the sheriff.
Okay.
I think he's a good man. He's probably a great husband, great grandfather. I do believe that. I believe I'll take it one step further. If I'm elected, I'm going to ask each one of them to hold a position. I'll tell you why. We all want the greater good, but we're all not the one to lead this county.
Okay. The other two?
Chris, funny, good guy. He's made some mistakes just like I have. We all have. I think he holds he's an instructor and so forth. I think he brings a lot of training aspect, you know. Brian, I mean, I don't really know Brian that well, you know. I had one encounter where I had to help him with a suspect. You know, I think that he's a big old teddy bear, you know. I think what we need in the county, and all four of us, is a stern person. And we've never had it, and we need it. I don't owe nobody. I think all three together, they've been in the system so long, and they're cultivated and migrant in that they all bring an individual asset to the sheriff's office. I think we all do, or we wouldn't be here.
Okay.
But as a man to man and to them, if elected, I would ask them to be part of the team.
That's awesome.
Why wouldn't I?
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Four of the strongest guys around all under one roof. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.